Adequate notice of this regular meeting of the Board of Adjustment of the Township of Franklin has been provided. Would you call the roll, please?
Anthony Caldwell asked to be excused. Laura Grauman.
Here.
Donald Johnson asked to be excused. Bruce McCracken.
Here.
Alan Rich.
Here.
Robert Shepard. Gary Rosenthal.
Here.
Joel Reese asked to be excused. Cheryl Bethia.
Here.
Cheryl Bagalo.
Here.
And Robert Thomas.
Here. Minutes, regular meeting, May 16, 2019.
Move the minutes.
Second.
Bruce McCracken.
Yes.
Alan Rich.
Yes.
Cheryl Bethia.
Yes.
Cheryl Bagalo.
Yes.
And Chairman Thomas.
Yes. Resolutions, Green Care Farms, ZBA 19-00003.
Move it.
Second.
Laura Grauman.
Yes.
Bruce McCracken.
Here. Yes.
I'll take anything. Alan Rich.
Whoops.
Yes.
Gary Rosenthal.
Yes.
And Chairman Thomas.
Yes. I want to take 1 minute now for something that's not on the agenda. We don't usually get a chance to do this. I want to publicly thank Cheryl for her service to the board. This is her last meeting, and wish her, I'm going to be presumptive in speaking on behalf of the board. Wish her the best of luck, and I'm sure all of us appreciate, as I have, her insights and her work over the years. She may have only been back on this board a few years, but she did work extensively with the planning board in the last, not the last, but one of the last master plans. And I won't date her by saying how many years ago it was, but I have appreciated your hard work and your insight, and I'm sure everyone else has. We don't get to do this very often, I guess, as I said, because usually when someone leaves, it's end of December and they just disappear, and we never see them again. But anyway, on with the meeting. No discussion.
Thank you.
No discussion.
Yay! I'll miss everybody as well, and the state of New Jersey.
Okay, Engel Berman, ZBA 18-00006, application for D1 use variance site plan associated C variances for construction of 5694 square foot quick check convenience store with an 8-pump gasoline filling station. Variances associated with the proposed quick check consist of variances from requirements pertaining to impervious coverage, rear yard accessory building, and parking in the required front yard. Signage variances consist of variances from requirements pertaining to size of freestanding signs, monument and pylon signs, height of freestanding sign, monument and pylons, setback of the freestanding signs, number and size of building mounted signs, quick check, placement of corporate logos on directional signage for property at 1860 Easton Avenue and for 4 World's Fair Drive, Somerset, block 468.01, 468.10, lots 26.02, 4.01, and zones CB and the M2 zone. Carried from June 20th with no further notification, and if you would like to add to the summary, feel free.
I just very briefly will.
Wow.
That's a signal to be very brief.
Point of speech.
Exclamation point.
Just a few points, Mr. Chairman, and I'll have Mr. Ardman go over them. As you and the rest of the board members are aware, this is the remaining site of the property that was formerly the hotel, which was a 9+ acre parcel, which we received subdivision approval for in 2017 to create 3 lots. At the same time that we created those 3 lots, we received site plan approval for a hotel and for an assisted living facility, and then there was a 3rd site, which we had no user at that time. The hotel is the assisted living facility is currently under construction. In early 2019, we submitted an application for a minor subdivision approval to subdivide a strip of land from a parcel on World's Fair Drive to create a new access to this entire facility. And we also submitted an application for site plan approval for the Quick Check. We had a hearing in June for the subdivision for the access drive, which this board approved, and I indicated to you in June that we were not ready to move forward on the Quick Check because we still had some meetings with the Delaware Raritan Canal Commission, Franklin Township Historic, and there were some outside agencies and even internal staff that we had to satisfy. We subsequently updated our plans, and I know when you were there last month, you carried a bunch of plans in. Those plans you got to throw away because we gave you new plans. Basically, the plans that you have this evening are updated, and although the reports are somewhat lengthy, we've eliminated a lot of the issues that were raised by township staff. And although there are variances, it's not a complicated application. And I will go through both the site plan, all of the variances. I do have 5 witnesses. I hope they will all be fairly brief. But to outline the witnesses, I have a representative of Quick Check to describe the operation. I have Mr. Ardman, who is the site engineer. I have Ms. Dolan, who is our traffic consultant, who is here. Our architect has not yet arrived, and our planner has not yet arrived, but hopefully they will arrive shortly. But those are the 5 witnesses that I intend to call. I will start the presentation this evening by asking that Mr. Valerio be sworn in.
You could raise your right hand for me. Do you swear the testimony you're going to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
If you could state your name, spell your last name for the record, and give us your address, please.
Sure. It's Robert Valerio, V like in Victor, Allario. Our company is located at 3 Old Highway 28 in White House Station.
You can have a seat, Mr. Valerio. If you're more comfortable, you can stand, whatever you've... Okay. Mr. Valerio, by whom are you employed?
I'm employed by Quick Check Corporation.
Okay. Also, Mr. Valerio, these microphones, unless you hold them close to your mouth.
Got it.
Okay. And how long have you been employed by Quick Check?
Since 2001.
And what is your job title?
Well, I need to be a little transparent. I'm currently a real estate manager, a site selector. When I joined the company in 2001, that's what I came in at, but in 2005, I was promoted to vice president of real estate, and I remained in that position through 2016 when, at the age of 66, I decided I was going to retire, but they wouldn't let me. So I am now semi-retired and gone back to being a site selector. Okay.
And you were one of the individuals that was involved in the selection of this site for Quick Check, is that correct?
That's correct.
And how many sites does Quick Check own in the state of New Jersey, if you know?
Well, totally, when you say own, you mean more like we operate.
Operate.
Because we don't own every one of them.
Right.
But we have 159 stores located in basically just 2 states. We're here in New Jersey, which is our home. As I mentioned, our company's headquartered in White House Station. We opened up our first store in 1967 in Dunellen. In 2007, we ventured up to the Hudson Valley of New York. Today, we have 13 stores in that market. And then in 2014, we opened up our first store in Long Island. So there today, we have 3 and several under construction. Our vision as a company is to be the #1 convenience marketer in the metro New York area.
Okay. Now, in your former capacities, you're also familiar with the operation of the facilities, are you not?
Yes.
Okay. And the facility that we're proposing on Easton Avenue is a 24/7 operation, I assume?
Yes,
Okay.
we do.
And can you basically describe both the internal and exterior workings of the facility for the board?
Sure. First of all, we are going to employ somewhere between 35 and 50 people, most of which will come from the local area that we operate in. The store itself, if I can give you kind of like a virtual tour, when you first come in, we have convenient seating on the right-hand side, and then you proceed to our beverage area along that wall, and we offer anywhere from milkshakes to our famous coffee to, we even got into an espresso line, so we're kind of like our competitor Starbucks. They come to the deli area, everything's made fresh. We make everything in the store fresh. We bake on premise. And so whether it be made to order or in one of the walk-around cases, it's all made basically that day. As you continue along in the store, along the walls, we have 25 cooler doors, and I guarantee any kind of water you ever wanted, any energy drink you ever thought about, we carry. Then you come to our free ATMs, and then in the interior, of course, we have all the grocery and snacks and beverages and things of this nature that you can get.
Okay, and all of your retail sales will take place within the store. The only thing that is sold outside the store is gasoline, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And truth be known, we'll also probably have some de-icer in bad times of winter when, customer could use replenishment. But we do not service, so we're not like a gas station. We're not making oil changes. We're not doing any repair work at all in our facility. We're strictly basically offering fuel as one of the items that we sell.
Now, the product that is in the store, how does it get there?
Yes. So deliveries. So we're going to have basically 2 times a week will come our grocery items. 2 times a week will come our milk deliveries. 1 time a week will come our frozen good items. So that's about 5 tractor trailers per week on average, depending on the volume of store. That may increase or decrease. Refuse pickup will probably be about 2 times per week, but again, it will also depend on the volume of the store. Gas is always on demand. So there's no set date or time. It's just basically on demand. We do not service tractor trailers, so we're not in that business. We don't encourage that. Our site designs, as you'll hear from our engineers, are not designed to accommodate those tractor trailers. Should one pull on, we'll kindly ask them to move along. And most of them know, because we don't sell high-flow diesel. The difference being the amount of fuel that's pumped out at a dispenser. So if it's, what we do carry is what we call low-flow diesel for cars that take diesel and small trucks and landscapers and things of this nature. But the big tractor trailer guys, they'd be there all day, and so we're not equipped, nor do we anticipate, nor do we encourage that type of service.
Okay. Now, I know hopefully Mr. Young will be here shortly to go over the building itself, but the building that we are proposing here in Franklin is, from what I understand, your new prototype building?
That's correct. As a matter of fact, the most recent one we opened up is on Route 1 in North Brunswick by Livingston Road. So if you have an opportunity to be down that way, you get a chance to see it. It's our latest and greatest, which is what we'll be doing here. I know we have a store up in South Bound Brook, and a lot of times I'm asked, well, how did you come about picking this particular location? And the truth be known is that we don't envision, from the studies that we do, any of the folks that live in this area venturing up to South Bound Brook and then venturing back, nor do we see the folks from South Bound Brook venturing down to this area. So we viewed it as basically 2 different markets. And we think that this is an ideal location that will help, or that can service the folks that visit and or live in the area.
Do you generally have an idea, again, you run 24/7 as far as the number of employees per shift and basically the number of employees inside and outside? Can you give the board a general idea of that?
Yes, as I mentioned earlier, we'll employ somewhere between 35 and 50 folks. Shifts can run anywhere from 5 to 7, sometimes even 9 folks on the inside, 2 to 3 people on the outside. We'll never have less than 3 people in the store, or 2 inside and 1 outside. I just need to emphasize that what we do, and you'll hear from our engineers, everything we do is with the element of safety. So the design of the site layout and things of this nature, our drive aisle widths are usually much larger than most. Our parking spaces are designed so that they're convenient. They're usually 10 by 20s instead of the 9 by 18s that you may find in other shopping centers and things of this nature. We understand that, we appreciate that, and we try to convey that both to our customers and for their safety as well as our own employees.
Okay. Thank you. I have no further questions of this witness.
I just have one as more, just to elaborate on the information a little bit. The deliveries that you get with the 5 tractor trailers, are they liable to be any time of the day, or are they confined maybe to the evenings or early mornings, or
Well, what we don't want to do is have them come on property when there's going to be a lot of, customers. So it's usually in the off-peak hours. So morning is obviously a very good time for us, so it would be somewhere after that rush hour being, maybe from 9:30 or 10 to, right before the noon hour. But it's scheduled in such a way so that, because we have other stores in the area, they'll just tag on to that, but we can influence that delivery schedule so that we don't have that congestion. And as I mentioned, it's on a weekly basis, not on a daily basis. We'll have probably 5 to 7 box trucks per day, bringing the chips and the sodas and the things of this nature, but they're usually in and out very quickly. You've seen them all. They unload their truck, wheel the product in, and stock the shelves and are gone. But to answer your question, we can certainly encourage a delivery schedule that is not conflicting with the rush hours of the day for our customers.
The other,
I could be mistaken, but I thought I read in here somewhere where you had a high-volume diesel pump thing.
No, generically, it's known as either high flow or low flow. And high flow is if you go to a Pilot or a Flying J or one of those, when you see those tractor trailers loaded up, they've got anywhere from 75 gallons on each side to 150 gallons on each side. So they're and they need fueling quickly, and the volume of that fuel that comes out there is probably 3 to 4 times the rate as what you would normally get when you fill up. So the diesel rate that we pump is the same as if you were getting regular gas.
just as a clarification, maybe either Mark or Vince would know, we approved that kind of a setup on Veronica and Hamilton Street. I guess it's the 7-Eleven, where they're selling gas also, and they're not supposed to be selling, they don't sell to tractor trailers and have the setup that he's talking about. I was just curious if we know if that's working out. I haven't seen trucks there.
I have not seen a truck, and I think similar to this site, we've received similar testimony, and the site plan was similar in that the site plan wasn't made to accommodate for tractor trailers coming in to fuel up.
Right.
And I would say that would be, if the board was inclined at the end of the meeting to approve the application, that would certainly be an appropriate condition, because it addresses both the particular suitability for the use variance and also the site plan that they're asking your approval for.
And I was also going to say, I assume for site convenience, you're probably going to have 2 of these on site at the same time, right? They're going to come
Yes,
singles.
right, exactly. We do our very best to control all of that.
Well, if there are no other board questions,
I just had a look, what attracted you to this particular Exit 10 site?
Well, obviously, just the traffic volume back on Eastern Avenue, and as well as the traffic coming off of 287 and the ability to get back onto 287. So it appeared to us from the studies that we do, our proprietary information, that this would be an ideal location for our kind of use. So that's why we picked it out.
So access?
Access is very important, obviously.
Yeah.
And this is one of the few opportunities in the state of New Jersey where off an exit ramp you have access. Most of them you don't. So we view that as a very much a positive. I'd like to add one other thing, though, because I think one of the things that I'd hope you give consideration to is what separates QuickCheck from our competitors. And I will tell you, it's our people. Without question, because all our stores are company-owned and operated, and we have over 4,600 associates working for us, and all of our blood runs green, we're very dedicated. But these are local. So when you talk to a store leader, for example, although the name on the outside will say QuickCheck, it's really their store, and they will tell you that. And these are their customers, and these are their employees. And since I mentioned earlier, so many of the employees that we do have in our store come from the very neighborhoods in which we operate. They're going to school, they're going to activities and events that, any parent would go to with their children. So, they become very intricately involved. Last year alone, I think we supported 240 recreational programs and PTOs and PTAs. On a corporate level, we have basically 3 major fundraisers. One, of course, is the Festival of Ballooning, which will be taking place at the end of this month. It's the largest festival of ballooning in the summertime in the state, in the country, and would encourage you to get out there if you can. It's really a great and fun time. But the money that we raise go to great causes. But we also look for things that we give to in terms of, we do what's called Semper Fi, which is basically because we support the military. And this is an organization that distributes those funds. Currently, that program is going on in our stores right now where you can donate. And I think in a couple of years past, we must have raised about $170-some thousand just in 1 year for that kind of organization. But we also support food banks, you know, whether it be here in New Jersey or in New York or even on Long Island. So we try to give back as best we can. We feel like to be a good neighbor and a good citizen, we need to do that. And we do that both from a corporate standpoint as well as from a local standpoint.
Well, on that, this is really, I guess, not a land use question, but how, I know you say your employees are local. How are they hired?
Well, as the worlds have evolved, now it's all online, to be honest with you. You could come in and request, I think, you know, for a paper application and stuff, but there's a very simplified program by which you can go online, put an application in. We're always obviously looking for good employees.
So would it be the manager that you appoint that would hire them, or centrally?
Yes, it starts centrally and trickles down to the manager and his folks to you know, eventually interview that individual and make that decision, yes.
Any others?
Yes, I have one question. It has to do, again, with the deliveries coming from the tractor trailers. Are they pulling into the front of the store where all of your customers are, or is there a back entrance that they can avail themselves of?
Again, this goes back to the idea of safety, which I mentioned before. We do have a loading zone, which is in the rear of the store, so that way they're divorced from all the activities taking place in the front.
Great, thanks.
There are no other questions. We'll save the public for one opening at the end.
Okay. I will then move on to Mr. Ordman. I think Mr. McDonough is setting up the computer. I don't know if he's ready to go, but.
Thank you all, and thank you for coming out tonight. I know it's a challenge, but we appreciate you being here.
Mr. Ordman?
Yes.
Do you swear the testimony you're going to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
If you could state your name, spell your last name, and give us your address for the record, please.
First initial F, Mitchell Ardman, A-R-D-M-A-N, 575 Route 28, Raritan Borough.
Mr. Ordman, you're both a licensed professional engineer and professional planner in the state of New Jersey.
I am. My testimony this evening will focus on the engineering, and I'm
Okay, we've had his testimony before, so we're all set.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, and Mr. Ardman, again, for the record, you've been the engineer of record for all of the hearings on this project involving all of the other buildings, uses, and subdivisions that I talked about in my opening comments. Is that correct?
Yes, going back to, I believe, 2009, yes.
Can you very briefly, again, is it up on the board?
They'll be up. We're getting up in a minute, so I was ready for a backup if the laptop didn't come, but John's got us up and running. What I will do is, I don't know how you've been doing this digitally, so I have a copy. I don't know if you want to mark as you go through digitally. Any of these going to be like if we throw them on the screen, and then you can have a hard copy of what we're saying is Exhibit 1, Exhibit 2, etc. Okay. And I give you the digital files later if you. Yeah, the overall. On cue, right on cue. This actually points, yeah, this actually works on that screen on your right, my pointer. So, as many of you are familiar with this project, but I'll start from the beginning once again. We come off of the 287 ramp onto Easton Avenue on the, basically north is up and right on this plan. As you swing down, you get to the corner of World's Fair. The site in total, as I'm outlining here, was approximately 9.3 acres. And that was the subdivision, which included the Bristol, under construction. As you go by, you can see it well out of the ground now. They're making great progress on that. The hotel, which is not started as of yet. 2 detention basins on the site to handle the whole site. Again, those are largely complete at this time. The front access drive off of Easton Avenue, that right turn in, right turn out, that is staying as part of the project. That's been the same design the whole way through, and it will stay for this quick check project as well.
Mr. Ardman, just for the record, you're referring to what's probably going to be marked A1?
Yes, sir.
Okay, just so we're on the same page.
It's the overall and sign plan sheet 2 in your set.
Great, thank you.
It's, the portion is colored of it that is the subject of the application. The neighboring sites we have here, there's a driveway that goes out to World's Fair Drive that has been there for, since the hotel, the original hotel was in operation going back over 40 years. That cuts through the adjoining property. That adjoining property is the orthopedics building, which fronts on Easton Avenue, some parking on either side of that driveway. So the traffic is historically cut through that parking area, if you will. We show here on the southerly side going out to World Fair. That was the subject of the subdivision plan here last month. Going through the adjoining lot, that subdivision was approved and has now become part and parcel of the basically Quick Check Bristol and hotel property. That provides the access to kind of the back door to get out of the site. The total lot area, again, is 9.3 acres, and I think that's a pretty good description of the entire site. The pad site that we're going to be developing is what is now lot 26.03. It's approximately 3.134 acres, and again, the subject of the application. On the adjoining site, as I said, we're cutting through. That's the old big detention basin for World's Fair Drive, and so we'll be coming out in this location much further removed from World's Fair Drive. And I think you'll hear Betsy testify on traffic, the benefits of that. Previously, we were only about 110 feet from the intersection. So if you came out on World's Fair, if you're trying to make a right, you know that cross traffic, that you can get that close. Or excuse me, make a left to go to Easton Avenue. Even going right, since you're so close to the intersection, it was hectic there, and crossing through the neighboring property. Now we're going to be approximately 640 feet away from the intersection. So that'll provide a benefit for this property.
Before you move on, Mr. Ardman, the existing driveway that you testified to through the orthopedic site, that will be closed off, will it not, as part of the previous approvals? It will be gated so that will not be able to be used by motorists to gain access to World's Fair Drive. The only way they can get to World's Fair Drive now would be through our new driveway. Is that correct?
100% correct. And as we flip to the next slide, I will show you that in a little more detail, exactly where that's all going to occur. Yes, sir. The sheet up there now is just a blow-up of the area, more of the quick check. This is the dimension plan, that sheet 4 in your set, and colored on the screen as we see it. So
we're going to call that A2?
A2 is good.
Awesome.
Okay. So the quick check, as was noticed, is basically in the center rear of this proposed lot. It's a 5,670 square foot building, and there are going to be 54 parking spaces associated with that. So again, the building in brown, as you see, the closest parking stalls, they're actually, the way they do this, and you've probably seen in these quick checks, those are concrete spaces, and it really provides an easy way to pull up to the stores, and there's concrete, and there's bollards all in front, again, with the vision of safety, good access. The ADA handicap stalls are right in front, with the building access as I show. The architect will go through in a little more detail on the building. The pumps, there'll be a canopy, and there'll be 8 pump fueling area, the area I'm pointing to here, which is in the front of the site. As you come in, again, the access off of Easton Avenue, coming into the site, and there are 2 right turns to turn into the property. One to come to the front, so if you see, I have some spots, I can get right to the front. And for convenience and parking, it really lays out well. There's parking all around the property. Typically, they'll have the employees park, the furthest remote from the door in the front, way in the front or in the back side. So you can pull in either one of these 2 driveways, come into the parking. The question that was asked by Mr. Shepard, as far as the loading goes, yes, we have it designated in the back of the building here. There's a loading zone where the trucks can pull up. Same area as the dumpster, which is located in the rear of the site as well.
Do the box trucks unload there as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. There's door access to get wheeled in there. As Pete was saying, the driveway, this is the blow-up that goes through the orthopedic center. We had it on either end. It'll be cut off, so somebody can't go partially through. It will be accessible for fire and emergency, though. We have a chain on the one end, and as requested by the neighbors and also Mr. House, this will be one of those swing arm gates that'll be set up there, and it'll have a Knox box on it. There was some concern that people maybe trying to go over, under, or whatever through that if it was just a chain there. So we want to make sure that everybody knows that's not accessible for the general public to go through that location. As far as the circulation, again, there's another driveway that goes out to the rest of the site. So we've really tried to integrate the traffic circulation as well as pedestrian into the property. So this can go out if somebody was coming, parked in the Bristol, was there, they can come in that side. It also provides circulation for fire, emergency, et cetera, for the whole 9-acre property. Pedestrian circulation as well, we try to combine it. People from the Bristol can walk over, visitors and or staff can walk over and come right to the site. There's crosswalks, handicap ramps the whole way. Same thing for the hotel. Good access to come crosswalks, handicap access all the way in, right into the building. So it's been thought out to have that circulation. Some amenities, there'll be some outside tables here, just 2 tables with some seating. As you heard described, there's seating also inside if you want to grab a bite and stay for your coffee or a quick lunch bite. So that's pretty much the main circulation. We did, as Peter said, update the plans from some of the earlier staff comments, and you have those in your set. We adjusted some of the signing and striping as you come in here to make it more clear. Some other double yellow lines. As you go out, again, this will be the only access, as you saw on the other sheet, to go to World's Fair Drive now. This will be a 4-way stop for controlling in all ways. That was always the intent. It was not clear on the plan, so we made that clear. That's how it'll be. We're getting back to 287. As you know, it's not a direct route. That's the only issue with the site. You can't just, there's no left turn on World's Fair. You can't just zip back there. Once you get to World's Fair, there's signage along World's Fair that's been put up over time. So we're going to add signage when you come out each of these driveways. Here, basically, to World's Fair. Same thing at this intersection. To 287. It'll take you to World's Fair. Then the signage on World's Fair will take you around back to 287. I mean, and you'll hear from traffic. A lot of the traffic we feel, people are coming into Franklin. They're going to stop here and go their merry way into Franklin, neighbors, workers, etc. There will be people who know as they're traveling down 287, oh, there is a quick check there. I can hit that for gas, a quick stop. They're going to be the ones who want to get back on the highway. So that will be a percentage of the people. We'll try and make it easy for them. In the back, staff comment was maybe a little more separation between the back end of Quick Check and our neighbors. So we did have landscaping. We're also proposing a 6-foot high vinyl fence in that area to put a little bit more of a permanent screen between the 2 properties. As far as zoning goes, you'll hear more from the planner, but we are in the CB zone. We've been developing under that for this whole time. Lot 3.134 acres, that was previously approved. It's a 5-acre minimum, but that was approved under the original subdivision and variances. This setbacks, as Mark noted in his report, there's for a rear yard, there's a shed in the rear here for storage of some equipment, just small equipment for the quick check, and that's next to the dumpster, so that's in that position, and that's just 5.2 feet off the property line versus the 50 feet required. Again, it's going to be screened well, and it was designed in the whole complex here. As far as parking goes, in the front right corner, there are just 5 spaces. There's a 75-foot required setback. The closest one there is 36.5 feet. But it's not a whole row. It's really just the corner of the one space. Then you get further away, and it is just those 5 spaces. And as I'm sure you're well aware, driving by, and you'll hear planning testimony, it's really up on the hill. So it's not going to be as if you were in a flat site that they're kind of in your face as much. They're up on the hill, and it won't be as visible as they might be in other locations if they were that close to the roadway. Lot coverage, we're just over, again, for the CB zone, it's a 55% maximum. It's 56.9% proposed. Regarding utilities on the site, for this it was pretty straightforward because we had always envisioned, knew there would be a pad site here. When we master planned the water lines and sanitary sewers through the property, we provided the appropriate stubs. So they'll really just be tying in to the building with those stubs for either water, fire sprinkler service, and sanitary sewer service. I had mentioned the detention basins again. These are the same basins. We included this proposed development. We had known it was a potential quick check, but whatever it was, we included a couple acres of impervious that would come into these detention basins. They were approved, the basins, by the township staff and by DNR Canal as well. There are comments in CME's engineering report, but I'm confident we either already addressed them and just kind of have to point out where they are in my kind of lengthy report or give some updates on the plan. So I'll get to the report, but we have no issues with complying with any of the stormwater questions or comments in the engineering report. I think now we can flip to signs.
Before we go there, just a couple of points. The dumpster itself, the materials that will be used for the dumpster will be comparable to the materials for the building?
Correct. We can match that for the enclosure. That's correct.
Okay. And can you briefly touch on outdoor lighting in this area?
Sure, yes. Lighting I did not hit. So there'll be light standards around the property similar to, what's been placed in the hotel in the Bristol. And that'll be for the parking areas and circulating the front of the building. Under the canopy itself, there will be lights, LED lights, and they're all LED lights. They're under the canopies. That is brighter than the standard. If you've been to these quick checks, any gas station really, they typically are for a couple reasons. That's where the most action is going. People pulling in, people backing up, people realizing, oh, I'm on the other side of the pump. We want it pretty well lit there. So it is lit more than your standard. Staff, Mark, had comments on that the first time around. We work with Quick Check to bring those illuminations down from what we originally had. It is still admittedly brighter than you would have at any typical parking lot, but it's a standard for the industry, what you're going to see underneath of a canopy in that location. So we think it, because of the traffic, because money and credit cards are changing hands, that you want to have a pretty well-lit area in that location.
Another issue before you move on to the signage, landscaping.
Yep.
And also, in talking about landscaping, we did have meetings with the DRCC and the Franklin Township Historic Commission, and they had some input vis-a-vis landscaping, so if you can tie that all together, please.
Certainly. So, well, we'll start with here, and then we'll flip back. So generally landscaping, around the exterior, we're going to have shade trees, as is typical. At the ends of the aisles for the parking, we're going to have shrubs or hedges to block the lights either internally with our own project or pointing out to the site. Then we're going to have a mix of other plantings. The plantings that you see on this plan, you can see circles all through. Those were all approved under the kind of master site plan that we originally had. So those around the Bristol, those around the hotel, even these all around the detention basins as you see on the entrance. So the ones in the green highlighted here are the ones that were specific for this site plan. One of the areas that I know was some concern again for visibility, Easton Avenue, DNR Canal, and Mr. Healy brought up, was the frontage here. Now we do have a wall in this area, and we do have some visibility for those parking spaces. So we agreed to work to supplement those as much as possible. One of the unfortunate site restrictions, but necessary also site requirements, is a water line. The township water line kind of ran smack dab through this property. It had been there for 50 years, so we worked with your water department, and that was relocated, and a brand new line was installed along the edge of the property. But we can't plant right over that, so that this area is restricted from planting. What we can do, as Mark suggested, is to get some plantings to grow over the wall, some vines or other things that can do that. And we'll work, my landscape architect, to work with staff and supplement in that area. Switch to the overall plan again, number one. So the other area of some concern was the entrance driveway. So again, I don't know if you can zoom in at all or not. Putting it to work. Perfect. If we could see, pan just to see as much of the driveway as possible. But so we have, other way. Perfect. There we go. So we've added, since the original one, you can see the pine trees. So the parking lot for the orthopedics, they actually have a fair amount of pine trees and others along that drive now. In the ordinance, as was pointed out, there's some guidelines for planting driveways to commercial sites. So the ones, it's a little harder to see here, but you can kind of see them outlined in red. So from our original submission, we've put new plantings in already, and we haven't had an early go over those with Mark yet, but as much as we can, we're planting additional shade trees along here and additional sections of shrubs and also evergreen. So we're trying to punch that area up as you come in to make for a nicer drive. This area on the left side, that's the detention basin. I don't think anybody's floating around going to worry too much. So it's not a screen there, but it is trying to make a nice entrance. We're just tight here. The wall and the guide rail are unfortunately too tight to have any more street trees for that one section, but we have for the rest of the entrance drive there. So that's the other area of plantings we wanted to show.
Okay, Mitch, now you can move on to signage, signs, and again.
Sure. So next, I think in the set there is the existing pylon or freestanding. There we go. Okay. So not too distant ago, that was the sign for the old hotel that was up there. It's since been removed during construction, but only a couple months ago it was gone, and it was good. It was there for a good 40 plus years probably.
This is a site photograph of the former pylon sign that we'll call A3? Perfect.
Correct. And
Thanks.
this is taken on along the exit ramp just as you get onto Easton Avenue and you're looking onto the site. Correct. And that existing pylon sign, I have, we'll get to that. Okay, here are my numbers. So that sign, and we'll take a look, was 36 feet 7 inches high and had a sign face of 143.7 square feet, so well above anything that you typically are approving in town. We can switch, if you want to switch to the other one where I have the dimensions on there, and you'll see. But I'll also state, as you know, there have been many other signs on that frontage as you've been passing that. We're not counting those in kind of our comparison testimony because we can't speak how they lawfully got put there, but they were over 20 years, a good number of them. So we'll keep our comparison to the one big existing sign, but as you know, there have been many signs over the years. So this was a measurement we did when we were before you 2009 plus for the prior shopping center, and this was, in the application. At one time, there was a discussion about refacing that existing sign. But as you can see there, the dimension, it was 36 feet 7 inches high, 24 feet just to the bottom of the sign, and an almost 13-foot high and 11.5-foot wide sign. So that was what was there before, and again, not even counting all that in the photograph, as you saw, kind of all that blackout area and the area below the main part, that what I'm calling the blacked out area, where they would put other signage as needed, events or something else going on. So it was a very large sign that was there historically.
And that was, you're referring to a line drawing showing dimensions of the existing freestanding sign that we'll call A4?
Thank you.
Perfect.
Okay. So at this point, I think we can probably, now that you hear what the old sign was, we can jump to some of the proposed signs that we're looking at. Hotel sounds good.
Quick question, Mitch, what was the setback of that prior sign?
Overall plan, it's shown what's the driveway now going.
Mitch, you need to use.
Thank you. So here. Scale eludes me, but I will get close. It was approximately 30 feet. And it was, I'll get a placement of these proposed. Maybe we go back to the overall site plan so I can get you some placements before and show you where the existing was. Overall, yep, I think that. So the signs in red are the signs. The one I'm pointing at now, which is in the more westerly side, that was the existing sign that I've been referring to. So it would have been in the driveway, as I described, going around the back of the Bristol, closer to 287 as you come off the ramp. The two new signs, there'll be the Quick Check, and then there'll be the Bristol sign. So those are the two proposed locations of the Bristol and the Quick Check sign. I'll have those offsets respectively. The Quick Check will be 12.8 feet setback, and the Bristol will be 15.3 feet setback.
How tall will they be?
The Bristol sign will be 25 feet high, and the Quick Check sign will be, to the top, will be 21 feet 9 inches. And I'll show you that on the detail.
Would that be visible from the highway?
No, they won't. The only one is the other hotel sign that's on the other side. That stands way up there. But this, the old sign was not either, and these were going to sit down lower, even lower than that. And we staggered them kind of in this location, and we staggered the heights a little bit, so when you come off for visibility, and you can just, as you flatten out as you come up there and just kind of see them to the right, they'll be offset a little bit, so they don't merge too much as one sign. They show distinctively, but as I'll show you, we've tried for a Quick Check sign to really get, a little more distinction and to look more cohesive, as staff has been asking as we've been working on these signs for quite some time now. So once again, the existing pylon sign, the proposed quick check sign, and then the proposed Bristol sign, and these are all shown on the overall site plan exhibit. So now we'll click back, if we would, the hotel sign. Now on your overall sign plan is your set, there's dimensions, but I'll give them to you as well. We want to show you the colored version so you could see what it would look like, kind of the colors of the Bristol or gold and blue. The hotel suites, again, still waiting for a user, so that'll come in, but the background. This will be a painted sign. I've seen put some detail, the arch at the top and the caps, and the gooseneck lighting to light that sign. The other details, we're putting a base, a stone base at the bottom that will be planted. So those are kind of the extra details that we've added to the sign. And once again, the face of the sign itself is below your 100-foot standard, is at 95 feet. It's the total, including the posts and the frame and the bottom, is 163 square feet. So that is the Bristol sign.
Just for the record, you were referring to what's going to be Exhibit A5, which is a color version of the freestanding sign for the Bristol and the proposed hotel.
Thank you, Counselor.
You got
Yes.
it.
Okay, so we'll go to the quick check.
Wait,
Yes.
when you say the sign will have a stone base, but it will be planted, what does that mean?
We're going to, so it'll be, this
Going to put some shrubbery around it?
yeah,
Okay.
around it and kind of in it, yes.
Okay.
Yep. This next exhibit that I'm referring to is a color version that is on sheet 2 of our set that we'll refer to as Exhibit A6,
6, Mr. Hardman.
for everybody keeping score. And this is the quick check sign. So once again, working with staff, historic commission, et cetera, get some elements that look in common was the goal. So going to have the same curved cap at the top, going to have the same frame around the sign, posts, and again, the stone base. So those
You're only going to have regular and diesel, or are there going to be other?
yeah,
There are others, but I think that's all that's required to be posted.
correct.
That will be the size of the sign.
Okay.
That'll be the size, correct. But also as a requirement for showing the cost, which is required of the gallon of gas, they are digital display on this sign.
Yeah, no, I assumed. I
Yep.
I
Yep.
figured you might be
No.
showing all of them. I don't know.
Sure, understood. I just want to get that on the record, that they are internally lit and digital sign here. So again, the sign face itself is under the 100 feet. It's 89.7 square feet. The height is 20 feet, which meets your ordinance, but just to the rim here, once we added the curved cap and all, that's where we get up to 21 feet 9 inches. The total of all the components of the sign is 145.6 square feet.
And again, for the record, all of those things that we are seeking are in fact variances, are they not?
That's correct.
Okay. And also for the record, we have reviewed both the placement of these signs, their location, their height, and the size of them with both the Delaware Variant Canal Commission in a meeting with them and also with the Historic Commission.
That's correct. And as you probably know, and we exhibited that in some sections, the canal in this area sits down quite low, the towpath, so you're really, if you're looking up at the existing screening, you're looking basically up and over the signs, and you're also looking at the edge of the sign since they're facing Easton Avenue, and only the edge will face the canal. So they were satisfied based on that information and criteria. The other sign that we're going to have is on the World's Fair side, the monument sign.
Does that mean it's not going to be on stilts like the other two?
Correct. we can extrapolate on that one. There is I will refer you to the overall sign, overall and sign plan sheet 2. I apologize, we don't have a digital on that one. Basically, that one is going to have the same similar details. It's going to have wood posts. It's going to have the arched cap. It's going to have a stone base at the bottom. That sign is going to be a face of 76 square feet, so it's under the 100 for the face itself. With all the components, the gross area will be 152 square feet. It's going to have
Mr. Ardman, if you go back to A1, I think it'll show on the detail. You'll be able to show it.
on the bottom right, yes. Yes, on the overall site plan. It's not color, but. That one right there, that's possible to blow up. So this was Exhibit A1, Sheet 2, the overall plan on the left side of the plan in the center. So you'll see, speaking about, there'll be the wood frame sides, the arched top, again, the gooseneck lighting, that will reflect the same as the sign, the Bristol sign on Easton Avenue. It will have the quick check, and it will just have the one price on here. That quick check portion of it will be digital on this side and internally lit. But you can see that the detailing was done to match the other signs, and I think it was done pretty well by the sign designer. The stone base, again, with planting around it. So again, trying to pull all those details together. Be the variances for height and size, as I stated, setbacks, as I stated, and Mark has in his report. Also for a third sign, basically, we're allowed one for each frontage, but 3 users here and the distinct site for the quick check, we will be requesting the third sign. Building signs, if I should go to, I'll give the overview and then.
Why don't you just review the building signs and then?
Well, wait a minute. You've shown us 3 signs already, but only 2 were for the quick check. You say there's going to be another one?
2 for the quick check, and the third was the Bristol and the hotel.
Right.
Those
And
are the 3.
those are all the signs we're going to have?
Well, those are the freestanding signs, and there's building-mounted signage. On the canopy is the standard, and on the building is the standard for any quick check.
Okay.
Before we move on to the other signs, so I just want to summarize. As far as the sign area variances, what you're proposing is each of the signs, the 2 larger monument signs, pylon signs, the sign area, the part that's conveying the message, if you will, each of those is under 100 square feet. To the extent that you're over, it's because you have these ornamental features, and we count that the entire structure, so that's why those need variances for sign area. And I'll just say to the board that both boards have consistently granted variances when, for that reason, when the sign area, the message is 100 square feet, but it's for ornamental purposes. But can you explain, and I'm sure the planner will too, would you be able to give some testimony why, from a site engineering perspective, each of the signs needs to be taller than permitted and set back closer to the property line than permitted?
Certainly. So it really goes to the sight line as you come off the ramp onto Easton Avenue. So I guess we'll go back to the overall site plan. As you know, as you're driving, as you come up off the ramp, what's a good location? Once they get set too far back onto the site, you actually, because of the slope, and if we come down a little bit, so if to meet the setback, they would be more in this area that I'm pointing at. But as you're looking at the slope as you're driving, you're going to see more of a slope, and it'd be much harder to see kind of up the hill and set back to see where those signs would be if they were to meet the setback. We have the water line easement, so they would be on the far side of the water line easement. In my opinion, it just would not be a good placement for those signs. So that's the reason for the location, the setback location. For the heights, again, on the quick check, the height was really, once we added the little ornamental top to it, that put it over the 20 feet. For the Bristol/hotel sign, it was to give some distinction. We looked at it once when they were set both at 20 feet and side by side. They started almost to blend as we try to do a photo or vision it as you come down the ramp there. They almost blended into one sign when there was not that distinction in height on them. So we thought this would visually break them up better, so you'd understand the two different signs and they'd look better. So that's the
Couldn't you
reasoning.
just make the posts shorter?
On each of them?
I'm wrestling with what the reason, I mean, is there a hardship? Is it somehow a better?
I think a better
It's just
planning
what your
because,
client
because
wants.
because of visibility, I think it gives good visibility coming off the ramp.
Would it give significantly worser
Visibility.
visibility if it were a little bit lower?
Well, I think if, again, we wanted to keep a distinction in the heights. So if we brought the quick check one down just 2 feet to be under, then, and the Bristol would be the same, again, they'd kind of be the same height and I believe would blend. So to break that up, then the quick check would start to get down to maybe the 15 or 16 foot height, and that would seem to sit pretty squat to the bottom of the quick check sign, being pretty close to the ground at that point.
So you're talking about a certain aesthetic.
Yeah, there's an aesthetic on it, and also just readability that you can really see the sign as it comes through.
Aren't they up on a slope?
They are on the slope. That is true.
Why does putting it higher in the air get better visibility? You'd think you'd want it to be lower,
to catch
more
your
even
eye.
with the driver's line of sight.
Yeah, I think just as we've looked at it, as you come down that ramp, as you're coming in, those seem to be the kind of the sweet spot of where they felt.
What I'd suggest, Mr. Healy, if there is a concern, we can probably go out there and, if the board were willing to grant the variance that we were seeking to move this along, we would be willing to go out there and actually put signs out there, and if it does make sense to lower them, we'd be more than amenable to lowering them. But I think it's something we can look at. We can put temporary signs up and take a look at them, and then if we need to adjust them to bring them lower, we'd be happy to do that. But again, we want to also make them aesthetically pleasing and also visible.
Suggesting that the board grant the variances, but you'd be lowering it after the fact?
We would be willing to agree to lower them, with your input, and also our professionals' input. If the signs can be lowered where they make sense to be lowered, we'll lower them. Again, lowering them just for the sake of lowering them. Again, Mr. Orman has gone through this exercise. He felt that this is the appropriate height. Can they be brought down a little? Perhaps, but when you look at it, I mean, again, if we put something out there, you may say, you're right, Mitch, that's where it belongs, or you may say, bring them down 2 or 3 feet. If it does make sense, we'll do it.
The answer is going to be, we received the variance from.
As you say, the problem becomes who's the ultimate arbiter on whether they get lowered.
You can't put me in that position, that's not.
Well, I think in the past, Mr. Healy, we've put you in that position before, and I think.
Not when you've received the right of a variance from the board. I mean, it's a matter of, details of
All right,
some design thing, that's one thing.
in that case, I will withdraw my suggestion, and we will request the variance that we're seeking.
So where on this photo would the new signs be located?
There would be, so further up Easton Avenue. So this was closer to the exit as you come off, so they would be further up, just past where this tree is right here.
But the tree is going to go, right?
Yeah, I believe it would, yes. Yeah, that would seem to block the sign.
So how high would they be in comparison to
Let's
that
see that.
37-foot sign?
Yeah, so they would be, so what was the top of that one
That was 30.
was 13 feet, so even that would be 24 to the top. So, so the top of our Bristol would be about the top of that sign, and the top of the Quick Check would be 5 feet lower, or 4 feet lower to the arch.
And it starts sloping down after that tree, or
Not too much more.
maintains that?
It maintains somewhat there. Yeah, there's always a slope coming up to the site.
And what is the space between the bottom of the sign and the and grade?
Yeah, that's, ooh. So on the, on the Quick Check one, it's 9 feet. And on the Bristol one, it's 13 feet. So if the Bristol were to come down 5 feet, because remember, there's the Bristol and the hotel, so there are two users there. That's a little ago, so if we brought that down, the bottom of the sign would be 8 feet. I understand Mr. Healy's point there, but it's starting to get a little squat there in proportion. If it was, legs were cut up 5 feet, yeah. I believe it would appear top-heavy then.
What is the genesis of the two-sign concept? Because in previous versions of the site plan, it was one sign.
Yeah, and that just as one sign, we seem to get feedback that was over 300 square feet then when you put them together, and that with the different use also, the Quick Check kind of being a different thing and having the digital to that extent and the internally lit, that splitting them up made sense. That was, again, discussions, DNR Canal and Historic and other staff. So it was 321 total square feet when it was one sign, and to get all those users, it was over 30 feet high.
Cheryl, just a little more input. Our original, you're right, was one sign. When we sat down with the Historic Commission way back when for the first two users, the hotel and the assisted living facility, the Historic Commission at that time, and we had shown them the sign, recommended that it would be more aesthetically pleasing if they were broken down instead of having one large sign. Some township staff professionals, when we went back and looked at it, also suggested the same thing. When we went down to the Canal Commission, again, their feeling was that you're instead of having one massive sign, it would be better to have two smaller size signs. Also, by having them at the sign message portion at 100 feet, we are keeping them consistent with the ordinance and previous approvals in the municipality. If we took all three of those users and tried to put them on one sign, again, the sign would be higher, it would have more sign face to it, and that was the feeling of the Historic Commission, and they felt that the two were more appropriate.
So at a minimum, we should probably have a condition that both signs remain consistent in appearance. So if one is blown down 10 years from now, it will still have to be consistent with the other one.
And that was our intent, and that's a reasonable condition, I think. Are there any other questions on the freestanding signs before Mitch moves on to the building signs very quickly?
on the building signs, and this is an exhibit, is the architect's exhibit from Quick Check, and is the building facades on it. There will be one sign on the canopy, and you can see that in the bottom of this rendering here, as I'm pointing to. The canopy will be 22.6 square feet. There'll be 4 on the logo, 4 signs on the building. There's Quick Check, and there's a Q, and each of those happen in 2 locations. In the original application and on prior Quick Checks, if you drive around, the Quick Check and the Q are together, so they've been split now. So that technically creates 4 signs in what was previously 2. But in any event, the Quick Check is 48.8 square feet, where 30 square feet is permitted, and just the Q portion itself, which is on the tower element that you see in the left rendering I'm showing, and in the upper rendering I'm showing on 2 different portions of that tower, 2 different faces. Those are 22.6 square feet each.
Okay, and lastly, Mitch, there are some identification signs for motorists traveling around the site. Can you go back to the site plan and point out where they are and why there are variants?
Before we do, we were just referring to A7. That was the architect's facade showing the signs.
Correct. Again, back on the overall site plan, which would be A1, the enter and exit signs by themselves, enter and exit are not variances, but they do have the Quick Check and Q, the company logo on that, so that makes it a sign, and there's 3 square feet each, and they're basically placed at the entrance drives coming in each of those locations, each of those driveways. So
What, it would say enter and then a Q?
it says Quick Check with the and then the Q there.
In other words, that's the integrated trademark.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay, Mr. Healy, I'm sorry, Mr. Ardman, have you reviewed Mr. Healy's report that he issued in conjunction with this matter dated June 26, 2019?
Yes, I have.
Okay, and there are certain requests or certain questions that he asks. Some of them deal with architectural compatibility. I would like you to stay away from those. Some deal with traffic, and we can stay away from those. But those that deal with the site plan, can you just briefly go through the report and touch on his comments?
Certainly. So see if I skip through.
His comments start on page 5.
Right, so review comments. We'll skip down, I think, on the first I see on page 6, item 2, commercial design standards. Just some testimony, so I believe I gave for the pedestrian circulation. So is going to be a bike rack, which I don't believe I noted. And you'd say, why on Easton Avenue? But actually coming in the back door from World's Fair provides an opportunity if people are coming in that location. So we did think, you know what, it wouldn't be bad, and so we will be providing a bike rack. As far as site amenities, item 2, basically they're the 2 outside tables. We know there's a section in the ordinance that talks about a calculation for that. We didn't see this as so much as some of the other sites I've worked on in town that were outdoor plazas per se or sidewalk cafes. This just happens to be an outdoor space, so I did not provide a calculation. I can if desired, but basically it's those 2 outside tables that I referred to that we'll be providing. On the section on C for landscape design, I discussed that, and again, we willing to work with Mark if and where we can fit in additional landscaping, and he feels that more screening is available and we can provide. We're happy to do that.
So, Mitch, let me ask you about that. Mm-hmm. So, the Historic Commission and the DNR, they
Yes.
wanted additional screening to be provided? Is that?
So they asked to see basically whatever we could do. I can only point on this screen, only shows it. Anything in this slope area here that we can add. So in some places the wall is tight to the parking, so there's not much. And your suggestion of something grown over the wall is something we could do there. There's not too much more room, but we could probably get some more down below the slope here, just outside of the waterline easement, and we can add a few probably in a couple of these locations. I'm pointing just north of the 5 parking stalls and a few extra shrubs potentially along this eastern corner of the parking lot. So I think those are places we could add. And they were specifically looking for, not on-site, but just as a buffer from the traveling. They brought up, even though the canal is the historic portion, that Easton Avenue is in the view shed. So do what you can from there also.
I had mentioned those 5 spaces that are to the, I'll just say to the north of the canopy.
Right.
Which their location requires a variance.
Right.
Why do those spaces need to be there? Because I don't, it doesn't seem like they look like they're the least convenient spaces for customers or the quick check, and you could use that area for additional screening to satisfy the comments of not only our ordinance, our design standards, and these 2 other agencies.
Right, and so we did discuss.
Also, I think that would reduce the impervious coverage to 55%.
It may.
Just saying.
So I'll take that it would reduce it. We wouldn't quite get there, but yes, it would reduce the coverage. We did look at that with the client. Often those are employee spaces. You're right, they are the most remote. Probably wouldn't be great for customers, but often employee spaces. With the number they have here, 54, that's kind of a preferred number for overall parking. So the Quick Check would like to keep those spaces if possible.
There are 18 spaces over our requirement.
Over the town, that's correct. Over the township standard, we are.
So it's your client wants them. That's the answer.
Based on their history, the numbers they see, that they try to provide more instead of less spaces.
I presume you have the handicap parking there, right?
Yeah, they're all right at the front door. Yes, we do. The item D talked about the screening in the rear and the fence we added. And Mark asked that just to discuss that the fence that we're showing in the back. I think we said a 6-foot vinyl. I don't know that board usually looks for anything higher, but that would provide a decent screen there. We're open for if you have any suggestion, anything else in that area.
ENF or
Yeah, architectural.
architectural.
Right. The lighting, I believe I discussed that how we, and Mark shows actually right in here, the reductions that we made in the foot candles. We went from almost 50 average to 35.2 average under the canopy, which is the kind of the hot spot on site. The average to minimum ratio, again, we're still over that. We're 7.5 proposed, where 5 is permitted, and the maximum to min ratio, again, the canopy's hot spot is 43 to 1 versus 15 to 1.
You had mentioned some industry standards. What standards are those?
Well, generally for parking areas, they're similar to your ordinance that you have here for the average permitted. I would say those are fairly consistent with the industry standards for a general lot. I don't have any specifics for what would be a quick check type site or gas station. For what we've just worked with Quick Check themselves and the standards that we've worked with them, this is their model they use under the canopy. So I don't have any.
I think the architect will go into that further too.
Because I mean, I think everybody can understand. Every gas station you go to, it's lit up like almost like day, compared to a regular surface parking lot that's much lower. But, we have two standards. One is, the regular standard is only one foot candle.
Right.
And then higher activity areas, it's 2.5, so I obviously assume this is a higher activity, and it's 2.5. And you're still at, almost double. And then under the canopy, it's 35. And then the maximum to minimum, again, I think it's certainly due to, this is the difference, this is addressing, you don't want to have really bright spots and really dark spots. So there's this 15-to-1 ratio, and you're, again, it's still almost 3 times that. The planning board recently had an application where it was an ATM, and they needed, because of, I think it's state rules of lighting around ATMs, they had to exceed these same standards. And what the planning board required was basically show us what those standards are, and they did this as a condition. Show us what those conditions are, and show that you're not going over what those standards are. Maybe there's some similar thing that can be done here. I don't know if these are, you're telling me, but I'm not sure, what are they based on other than what your client wants?
And I think if we work on that as a condition here, that will bring in what's kind of industry standard for quick checks and competitors, and I'll work with you on that.
I think we can all understand that under a canopy, it needs to be bright for the reasons you stated, but we just have to make sure that it's not going above and beyond what's minimally necessary.
So if we were to approve, what would be the nature of the approval? Would we be approving lighting to standards for gas station canopies, or, how would that work?
I don't know exactly what agency, there's the illumination engineers, and they have guidelines for different land uses, so it might be that, or it might be some other organization that has standards.
Well, but if we were to make, approving resolution, we would need to refer to something. When you say standards.
I think the question's really directed to the applicant.
Yeah, and I think, perhaps if we can have a minute, we probably can give you more information through either the architect or Quick Check. I did the Wawa on Route 27, and I'm trying for the life of me to remember what the lighting was at that site and what the board approved at that site. And to be honest with you, I am drawing a complete blank. I know it was above the township standards.
Yeah, that Wawa's in South Brunswick.
No, that's in Franklin Township.
Really?
Awesome.
That
In that
way,
range.
okay.
Yeah.
It's a different one.
Yeah, but that was in this town. I don't know if Mitch has been able to gain a little bit more insight.
Some more data. Basically, they've said there's definitely possibility to bring it down some, but I can't give you a comparable standard as we work here. So I think, the suggestion that to come in and show comparison and industry standards as a condition, and we can acknowledge that we can bring it down. I just don't have a number I could give you at this point.
I think, and again, I believe the Wawa, when it was approved, it was a planning board application, but I think for guidance, and that's on Route 27, which is a similar type road, I think if we even say that we try to comply with those standards, which this town has reviewed, approved, I think that would make some sense and give you some guidance if we can look at the lighting that was at that site.
Actually, you might make a case that what you're suggesting is make this the same as Wawa. Okay, and what you might be making a case for is that it could be a little bit even brighter there than normal, because that's basically a standalone facility, a different kind of setting that probably required a little more light. So I don't have a real problem with the light if it can be taken down a notch or two. It's probably better, because that will stand out in the canal.
Well, there's not supposed to be under the state park regulations, there should be nobody on the towpath at night because the canal parks close at dark. So, I mean, theoretically, there should be nobody out there that can see that light along the canal at that time.
But taking your point, Mr. Chairman, yeah, taking it down a notch or two, and unfortunately, I can't give you a number, but I think we can work together to do that.
As Laura pointed out, how do we put that in a resolution?
That's why you have a good attorney.
Thanks, Pete. I mean, what you would need to do is you would need to grant the variance for what they're seeking with an understanding that they'll work with your professionals to reduce it to the extent possible. The only other thing you could do is indicate to them, similar to the ATM use that Mark just alluded to, is that you would require the applicant to show that the lighting that they're proposing is consistent with industry standards, so they would need to show you other uses that were similar that produced a similar, amount of lights usage and spillage.
And there very well may be standards from the Illumination Engineers of America or similar standards. I think you could draft language to that effect.
Are you comfortable with this suggestion?
Yeah, I think, well, he's right. They do need a waiver, and I think if the board is comfortable granting that waiver, again, they should be granting it to some standard. And I do believe we can work with the applicant to, make them provide us some standard that makes sense.
So the resolution will say that we will approve the lighting to some standard.
Yes.
To some, that's the way, the
Yeah,
language,
and
to some
to standard established by the Illumination Engineers of America or equivalent equals, something equivalent.
And you can include in there that whatever the number we have now, we will reduce that illumination from what currently is proposed.
So at least it'll be a little less.
Are we finished, Mitch?
I think unless Mark picked up anything else, we'll comply with any striping or directional things that have come up and discussed.
Okay, very, very quickly, Mr. House has a report. We can comply with his report. There's also a CME report dated June 26th. You've reviewed that, correct?
Correct.
And either we have complied with everything contained therein, or we will comply with everything contained therein?
That's correct, and there's just one waiver that was noted. The aisle widths are 25 versus 26, but as you heard from Representative Quickcheck, the spaces are 10 by 20. So that actually provides an equivalent, if not better, turning radius for cars getting in and out for that aisle. Waiver on the aisle width.
And all other items you would comply with, and they would not substantially alter what the board is reviewing this evening. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you, Mr. Ardman.
Any other board questions? Okay.
Find a microphone for me. Thanks. Do you swear the testimony you're going to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
If you could state your name, spell your last name for the record, and give us your address, please.
Sure. First name is Oliver. Last name is Young, Y-O-U-N-G. My address is GK&A Architects. We're located at 36 Ames Avenue, A-M-E-S, in Rutherford, New Jersey.
And you're licensed in the state of New Jersey.
Yes, I'll briefly present my qualifications. Good evening, everyone. I hold a bachelor's degree in architecture from Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, located in upstate New York, Troy. I've practiced in the field of architecture for over 20 years. I've been a licensed architect in the state of New Jersey since 2006.
Hey, we're fine.
My license is current. Thank you.
Oliver, how long have you been doing quick checks?
I first started working on quick checks right around 2001, I would say.
And you've testified before numerous boards on quick check applications, is that correct?
Yes, I have at over 40, and I've been accepted at all of them.
Okay, and also you testified and appeared before the Franklin Historic Commission to discuss the plans that are before the board this evening and the building that we are proposing, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and the building that we are proposing this evening was not the building that was in the original proposal going back over a year ago, is that also correct?
That is also correct.
Okay, and for the board members, I had mentioned earlier that the building that we are proposing is the new prototype building that Quick Check is currently using, correct?
Again, correct.
Okay, and for the board members, and John, if you want to take us to the outside of the building before we go to the inside, for the board members that are familiar with the Quick Check that is in southbound Brook up the street, this building that we are proposing is not that building, correct?
That's correct. This is a brand-new design. Late 2017, Quick Check approached us. They were looking to redesign the exterior of the building, create a new modern-looking design. So over the course of about a year, we went back and forth with some designs, and we ultimately arrived at this one, which is brand new. We just completed construction on one of them in North Brunswick, albeit that's a slightly smaller building. It's on Route 1 South near Livingston Avenue. And we've also gone and received several approvals before other boards in towns. However, there's no other ones currently under construction at this point.
And Mr. Young, just for the record, what we're referring to is Exhibit A7.
That is correct.
Great, thanks.
All right, can you,
Before we go any further, the paper you just handed out described this as being on Highway Route 287. That's not correct, is it?
It faces the exit ramp off of 287.
Okay,
That's
now,
correct.
you've got east, west, south, and north, which is never helpful for me. Is the first picture the front of the building?
That is correct.
Okay. And you got a left and a right, and then the one where it's just a door and a single window, that's the back?
That is correct.
Good, okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Oliver, describe the building, the materials, colors that we are proposing.
Sure, gladly. And referencing southbound Brook, the height of this building in terms of the massing, it's the same thing. The height in South Brown Brook was 23 feet 6 inches on the three sides of the building. We have the same thing here. However, at the front of the building, the topmost elevation, that part of the building bumps out. That's where the entrance to the store is. That's 4 feet higher. That stands at 27 feet 6 inches. The old prototype design, it was 26 feet 6 inches. The reason we bumped it up a foot is because we've also widened that front bump out. The older Quick Check stores, it's a narrower bump out because they don't have vestibules. With this new Quick Check design, we've added vestibules on either side for the customer entry. So by widening that bump out, we felt it necessary to also increase the height. It's simply a matter of proportions. Also, you'll see on the right-hand side of that bump out, on the topmost elevation, a green tower. We consider that the signature element of this new prototype. That tops off at 32 feet.
Okay, and all of those are compliant with the ordinance. We're not seeking any variances for height of any kind. Is that correct?
That is correct. Now, in regards to material, the lower part of the building, it's a solid brick. It's a red brick veneer. The upper part, it's two different materials. We have a white EFIS system, which stands for Exterior Insulation and Finish System. And then at that central bump out on that front elevation, that's actually white marble tile. And I'm actually going to correct myself here. The white EFIS, as you see it, we're actually going to be changing that to a light gray. When we built the North Brunswick store, we noticed that the white EFIS was too similar to the white marble. And the marble is a magnificent material. It wasn't popping enough. So to do that, we're going back and working with Quick Check to pick out a light gray element.
Marble will be where?
If you look at the topmost elevation there where you see the Quick Check lettering, the entire background of that, that's where the white marble is. It might be a little tough to see the score lines there based on this scale, but it is a white marble. And I actually have at the end of my presentation, I have a material sample board I'll grab and pass around so everybody can take a look at the materials.
Well, where is the EFIS system material if the everything behind that Quick Check sign is marble?
If you look at the other three elevations, all the, what I'll reference as white areas here, those are the ephes materials.
Okay, good, all right.
Oh, it shows a lot better on the screen. I'm going to face the other way now.
Point it out.
No, I think, yeah, I will actually. I think you can actually start to see it pop a little. It looks a little darker here because of all the score lines in the marble tile. The marble, it comes in, I think, 2 or 3 different sizes and mats, and then it's put up in a random pattern. So this... Too much fun. This area right here is the white marble tile. Then on the front elevation, this small area here and this small area here is the ephes, which is going to be a light gray. Now the top of those two, they're going to be capped off by a metal coping. 10 inches high, this will be in a white color to match the marble. In this area here, it'll be gray to match the ephes. We also have a flat canopy element on this building. I believe I'll reference South Boundbrook again. You might remember there's the Quick Check green. It's a metal standing seam awning and it's pitched. We've eliminated that completely. We now have a flat canopy. It actually only projects on the left side of the building. It covers that entrance. Where it continues across the bump out here, it only sticks out about 1 feet 4 inches from the face of the building. It terminates at the green tower on the right side. On the left side of the building, it wraps the corner a little and terminates after about, I think, 5 or 6 feet. Now, one thing I would like to point out in regards to the height of the building, I mentioned that the average height is 23 feet 6 inches on the 3 sides and the lower portion of the front elevation. That's the parapet height. The actual roof height is on average a minimum of 4 feet lower than that. The roof starts at a high point at the front of the building and it pitches towards the back of the building. And the reason for that big difference between the parapet and the roof is because we have a lot of rooftop equipment up there. This is essentially a food service store, so you have a lot of heating and cooling, you have refrigeration, you have exhaust fans, you have plumbing vents. The height of this parapet is designed to adequately screen all of those elements from grade. So these elevations, these color rendered elevations here are accurate because you do not see any of that equipment.
If there were a, if there were a bird's eye view, then the roof would not be covered. There would be all of these utilities hidden by the...
Correct. Let's say this building is constructed in a few years and Google updates their satellite views. If you take a look at that, you'll see all that rooftop equipment from the satellite view. I'm going to jump down to the bottom of that page and discuss the gas canopy briefly. The columns supporting the gas canopy are 2 feet by 2 feet square, and they're built out of brick. It's going to be the same exact brick that's being used on the building. The fascia part of the gas canopy, it's 3 feet high. It's a green ACM material. It's the same green that's being used on the green tower of the Quick Check building. And it might be a little bit hard to see here, John, if you could zoom in. Perfect, not too much. The lower part of that fascia is that light green element, which is the same as the fascia of the flat canopy on the building. There's synergy here between the materials and the design of the gas canopy as there is on the building. In regards to illumination, the only illumination on the face of the gas canopy is the one sign that we have on the front of the canopy, which faces the exit ramp. That's internally illuminated. There's no other illumination on the fascia of the canopy. Now, Mitch had talked about overall signage in regards to the site and the building. I'm going to jump back to the building signage here. I'll reference South Boundbrook again, where the signage, the queue, and the Quick Check were the same. It was a design decision that we made as architects, not to create variance headaches in every township, but that green tower, as I mentioned, we see it as the signature element of this design, and it just simply made sense to pull the queue apart from the Quick Check. These days, if you look at social media, everything's shortened, everything's hashtag, so we see the queue as being the identifying element of the Quick Check, hence the reason for separating that and unfortunately creating a second sign here. In regards to the square footage of those signs, Mitch had mentioned the square footage of the queue as being 22.6 square feet and the Quick Check being 48.8 square feet. We do exceed the allowable square footage. However, when we look at signage, we look at it in terms of proportions. If you take the area of the actual front facade here, and you take the area of the quick check signs, both of them, and divide them into the area of the facade, on the front it's only 3.5% of the total facade area. On the side it's a little bit more, however it's only 3.8%. I'd also like to point out the distance of this building from the road itself. Scaling it quickly on the computer, the front of the building is approximately 220 feet. Therefore, I don't think it's excessive to ask for this size sign, 48.8 square feet and 22 square feet.
Those are the signs on the building you're talking about?
Yes, only the building. I'm not referencing the sign on the gas canopy right now.
Or the signs that are along the highway?
No, Mitch covered that in his testimony.
Yeah, okay.
I believe I've covered everything I wanted to address. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have, or...
Well, I think that they were hoping that you were going to provide some additional enlightenment on the issue of why the light needs to be brighter under the canopy, and perhaps identify some standards that we can include in our resolution.
Sure, I'll touch upon it briefly. And I did a little quick research to jog my memory of the company or the organization I'm going to reference. It's IESNA, the Illuminating Engineering Society of North America. As architects, when we look at lighting inside a space, let's take this room, or let's take an office, our architect's office. When you discuss foot candles, you want a minimum of 30 foot candles on what's considered a work surface, such as this table or my desk at the office. I consider the area under the gas canopy to be a work surface. There's transactions happening, there's credit cards being exchanged, there's cash being exchanged. You need to be able to look and see what you're doing. When the attendants are punching in numbers, they need to be able to see those numbers clearly. So although we might be a little bit higher, I believe an average of over 36 foot candles, we can lower the foot candles, but I would argue that we don't go below the 30. That's because I treat this, even though it's exterior, I treat it as a work area, and I look at those spaces as work surfaces.
And this is illuminating the organization again?
It's the Illuminating Engineering Society of North America. That's one standard that we reference sometimes in our office.
So when you say the 30-foot candle, that is the standard for this ELISA organization?
Yes, for an office use.
For an office use, do they have a standard for this kind of use?
I looked briefly, and I don't believe they do. However, I will gladly double-check and provide that information if they do.
Okay.
The material of the green element, apologize if I missed it.
No, I'm glad you asked. I actually forgot to cover that. That's a green metal panel.
And are the signs, are they internally illuminated or are they backlit?
They're internally illuminated.
And then the last question, the board's, well, first, the township's commercial design standards and the board's prior approval both require that where there are sites with multiple buildings, that there be an effort made to have the architecture be compatible between the three different buildings. And the same requirement applies to site signage. Can you address how this application is compliant with that?
Sure, I'll touch
upon
that.
To the degree it's not, why?
Okay. The assisted living building is under construction right now, and you can clearly see it's clearly different from the Quick Check. That is a residential style design that has a pitched roof with shingles at the top. That's unique to that type of use. We don't feel it's unique to what Quick Check wants to be. And if we look at this site per se, I mean, everybody in this room knows these three buildings are on one site. However, the site boundary is simply a piece of paper. If you look at the building, I think it's immediately adjacent to this property or very close to it. If you drive down Easton Avenue, there's a very modern looking multi-story healthcare building. I think it's an orthopedic associate. And I believe if you look at visual compatibility, the Quick Check is very similar to that building in terms of the design and the flat roof. And I know they're not on the same site, but that would be my argument right there. And also, there's still a third building on this site that has not been built. I've seen some rough designs for it. I don't know how final they are, but I would offer that we can definitely look at compatible materials between those two buildings.
Mr. Healy, also when we were before the Historic Commission, the architect who testified before them from the applicant had indicated that they would adjust the color of the base of the hotel. There would be some compatibility between this building and the hotel. We had a sketch that we had provided to them, and the Historic Commission was happy that we would try to tie this building into the hotel. I have no other questions from this witness.
Anything from the board?
Okay. Dolan?
So, do you swear the testimony you're going to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
State your name, spell your last name for the record, and give us your address, please.
Elizabeth Dolan, Dolan, Dolan and Dean Consulting, 181 West High Street in Somerville, New Jersey.
Ms. Dolan, your firm has over the years conducted numerous traffic studies involving the subject property?
Yes.
Okay, and has submitted previous reports in conjunction with the assisted living facility and also with respect to the hotel that were previously approved. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and you also prepared a report in conjunction with this application?
That's also correct.
Okay, and what did you do in order to prepare that report?
Just for the record, I'm assuming you're accepting me as a traffic engineer. My license is still in good standing. Nothing's changed since the last time I was here. But yes, we do have a history of experience on this site with the traffic engineering, traffic studies, DOT permitting. So in preparation of the March 19, 2018 report that's been submitted in connection with this quick check application, we reviewed all of the counts, traffic volume projections, and then, of course, made new projections specifically associated with the applications before you now. So the traffic study that's been submitted is really a cumulative report that includes the existing traffic counts along the Easton Avenue, the existing site driveway, the adjacent medical office driveways on World's Fair Drive, as well as the Easton Avenue and World's Fair Drive intersection. So we had a huge database of existing traffic volumes. We included more background traffic growth to account for ongoing area development. We added traffic from the two buildings that have been approved, the assisted living and the hotel, and then we generated traffic volumes for the quick check, and we added them on top of everything else that's been approved, and our traffic volume system was then analyzed. You heard from Mr. Valario, why does quick check want to be here? It's a busy, highly traffic area. That ramp, Easton Avenue, coming around in front of the subject property carries over 2,000 vehicles in the morning and evening peak hours. And so that's what they're looking to thrive on. These types of facilities, and over the years, it used to be gas stations with little mini marts. It was convenience stores that added gas. They've morphed into a use that's now referred to by the ITE as a super convenience store. It's natural for the gas to be sold at the convenience store, and the trip numbers have gone up because the building areas have gone up, the number of fueling islands have gone up, and so for the building that we're proposing at this location, the morning peak hours traditionally the busiest. We're looking at about 230 vehicles entering and exiting over the busiest hour, and about 200 during the evening peak hour. So yes, that's a big number, but that traffic is drawn from the traffic passing by. I said we've got 2,000 cars passing by our frontage. And so the big draw is going to come from that traffic that's already there. There have been studies by the ITE. There have been face-to-face interviews that I've been involved with over the years, and other consultants have studied. The gas and convenience store is probably the use that generates the highest amount of pass-by traffic, and that's traffic that's drawn from the traffic flow passing by. We've seen studies in excess of 90%. There's one ITE study that averages about 80%. NJDOT allows us to use 75%, but I think that's conservative, and that's what they make us use for their permitting. But easily 80+% is coming to this site from the traffic that's already passing by, largely on this 287 Easton Avenue ramp system.
The net effect would be that there isn't much impact?
That's correct, because think about it, who's going to go out of their way to go through, I'll call it the interchange spaghetti to get here? I think that you may have a draw from the World's Fair Drive area and the more local draw, but that percentage is much lower. We're expecting the majority of the traffic to come off of this ramp because that's, as I said, 2,000 cars in an hour. So the net impact in terms of new traffic to the area using DOT's percentage is about 50 to 60 cars in an hour. And I would say that that's probably comparable to the original approval that was granted and that we used for the DOT approval that we currently have. Certainly this is going to be busy, but the analysis that's been submitted and reviewed shows that at the locations we've studied, which primarily is the Easton Avenue and World's Fair Drive intersection, we're not changing the levels of service at that location. We have a level of service D coming out of the ramp onto Easton Avenue under the condition with the hotel and the assisted living. When we add traffic going back out from the quick check, we do drop to an E, but that's acceptable from DOT's perspective. And I think the biggest benefit of this development is what Mitch was explaining about the new driveway out to World's Fair. Any activity that is generated on the more local level to and from World's Fair Drive is going to be happening 600 plus feet from Easton Avenue, whereas that existing connective driveway system that exists between our site and the medical office it's just too close to the intersection. So any traffic will be pushed a couple hundred feet back. We'll have a nice driveway location. That intersection will work at level of service B, that driveway location. And overall, you've heard about the appropriate circulation from Mr. Valerio and also from Mitch. This is the appropriate design. We've got full circulation around the building to accommodate the delivery trucks. One thing that wasn't mentioned, we did talk about the specific delivery zone, loading zone behind the Quick Check building, but there's also a place for the tanker trucks to pull off and be outside of the circulation system at the pump islands. So that's just another design feature that keeps the trucks separated from the passenger vehicles and the pedestrians. So overall, I would say that the impact is within reasonable parameters. We're having acceptable driveway levels of operation and no changes in levels of service at the World's Fair intersection with Easton Avenue. And the bonus is getting that access out of the way of the intersection where there is queuing on a routine basis.
Okay, Ms. Dolan, also in the past, you looked at projects and you look at signage. And you've heard some testimony this evening as to the location of the proposed new signs that the applicant has on the ramp from 287. From a traffic, it's getting late. From a traffic perspective, do you have an opinion as to the location of those signs and the sense that Mr. Orban talked about as to their proportion, their scale to the traveling public?
I would say that, and I didn't study this to the degree that Mr. Ardman did, but looking at the locations of the signs, the setbacks from the right-of-way line, and so forth, we don't want these signs to be too close in height or setback, because then they're going to either obscure one another or be morphed into one sign. And there's two things to identify, and it's important to the motoring public to have a clear visual of each sign so that they can appropriately slow down and make the turn into the subject property. With regard to the proximity to the ramp itself, the right-of-way line is set back pretty far from the curb line, so that naturally forces the setback to be further into the interior of the site, and then the property line bends right at the point where the quick check sign is proposed. So from the motoring public, they can't tell where the right-of-way is, but certainly we've got a very comfortable setback from the curb line.
Okay. Also, there was some discussion because of getting back to 287 from this site, that there should be signage on the site directing the motorist out the back, so to speak, to get to 287. Do you have an opinion as to that?
I think that that is appropriate to have that signage, because if the person does come off 287 and they're not familiar with the area, their natural tendency is going to be to go back to Easton Avenue. They're going to think they can get back the way they came. So I would think that that signage would be beneficial to the people who aren't familiar with the area.
And you'll work with Mr. Ordman as to the appropriate location on site as to those signs?
Certainly.
And there is signage already on World's Fair Drive that directs people back around to 287.
Yes, although when you get down to Pierce, I think one's missing at this point because you're supposed to turn right to go back. But yes, that signage is mostly there.
Okay, and to the extent that it's missing, I'm sure we can talk to the township about getting it replaced.
Yeah, I believe I did that about 6 weeks ago. It takes a little time to get it put up.
Right.
It was lying on this curb or whatever, I don't know.
Thank you. I have no further questions of this witness.
Anything from the board?
Anything about getting sidewalks for people? What happens to pedestrians? They don't go on this site at all, I guess.
Well, we do have the sidewalk connections off of World's Fair Drive where, we can kind of collect from the more local area. I don't know that we necessarily wanted to have sidewalks encouraging activity out on Easton Avenue. And as Mitch explained, we've got connectivity throughout the site with crosswalks that bring you to and from the three uses so that we do have an integrated pedestrian system on site.
All of the uses on site are connected, and then there is a sidewalk proposed up the access drive from World's Fair, so if there's ever a sidewalk provided on World's Fair Drive, people would be able to walk up that access drive, not have to walk in the drive.
And also the driveway, which we are closing off, if people from the medical facility decide that they want to go to Quick Check, they have that driveway that they can walk up to access the site, so they can get there through that also.
They have a pretty extensive on-site pedestrian network.
Any other questions?
One more. McDonough?
Do you swear the testimony you're going to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
And if you could state your name, spell your last name, and give us your address for the record, please.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is John McDonough. That's MC, capital D-O-N-O-U-G-H. Business address 101 Gibraltar Drive over in Parsippany, New Jersey.
Mr. McDonough, what is your occupation?
I am the project planner. I'm a licensed planner, state of New Jersey, member American Institute of Certified Planners. That's our national certification.
Okay. Mr. McDonough, you're familiar with the zoning ordinance of the Township of Franklin?
Yes, I am.
Are you familiar with the master plan of the Township of Franklin?
Yes, I am.
Okay, and you also have reviewed all of the documents that have been submitted in conjunction with this application by the applicant?
Yes.
And you've also reviewed staff reports that were generated from the township staff in conjunction with this application?
Yes, I have.
Okay, can you tell the board why we are here, for what kind of variances we are seeking this evening?
Okay, well, the primary relief that's before the board is a use variance from your corporate business, CB zoning district. This is the same district where the greater parcel was granted the use variance relief for the assisted living facility, for the D4 floor area relief related to the buildings that were on the premises as well. This is a zone that is oriented at office or commerce type use, and the board found that as part of this, I'll say, master plan development, that these new uses were appropriate, commingling in this overall plan development as a betterment of the condition of the property at a very important node, a very important transportation node here in the community. And what we've done, we have some more exhibits for the board, and I generally use these as one planning exhibit packet, but if we want to mark them individually, there's about 5 or 6 of them. I believe there's a total of 5 sheets, yes. They're going to be 4 pages of maps and then a last page of a ground photograph. So, what was our number again? I'm sorry. 8. So the first page of my planning exhibit packet is going to be A8, and we've taken a tax parcel map from the GIS, Geographic Information System, showing the subject property as one tax lot, block 468.01, lot 26, which we now know has been approved for subdivision, as we'll take a look back as we go through the actual site plan component. But that's the parent parcel as you saw it prior to the subdivision, located along a major corridor here in the community. This is a major transportation corridor. Quick check use, the convenience with fuel sales, is a service use that caters to the motoring public, so it's ideally suited at this particular location. Also, coming off of the off-ramp of 287 and at the junction and interchange of 287 as well, which is an interstate highway. And then, of course, we've got World's Fair Drive as well, which services a number of corporate and economic-oriented uses as well. So this is a very complementary use that relates to a specific piece of property at a very distinct location in the community where we have, again, a very heavy transportation-oriented component, and this is a land use, as you just heard through Betsy's testimony, caters very well to the pass-by traffic. So this is a use, much like all land use categories, this is a land use that follows our transportation patterns, and those transportation patterns are there, and that's why this land use is targeting this particular location. Second exhibit would be A9.
No, we're going to call it A8, page 2. You wanted one A8, so you got to live with it.
I'm just going to stick with A8. Sheet number 2. This actually shows the pre-existing condition of the property. We know it was a hotel prior to. It was a vacant hotel at the time this project was approved, and the new hotel was approved along with the assisted living facility. So this is what you saw beforehand, a substantially developed piece of property located in a substantially developed area as well, and you get here a better sense of the location proximate to the highway and the road network that follows the established pattern of the neighborhood. A8-3 is a color-coded GIS system that predominantly shows red, which are non-residential uses. So the key point here is there's a distinct lack of what we would ordinarily show in a yellow or a gold color, which is residential uses. So again, as a zone that is targeted at economic development, and you actually have reference in your master plan to enhancing the commercial viability of sites that are located in proximity to 287. This is exactly where this site is, and it goes towards that economic development oriented goal in the 2016 master plan reexamination to repurpose, revitalize, and add viability to this particular location. Fourth exhibit, A8-4, shows the reason why we're here. We're in the CB district where the use is not specifically permitted. So the applicant is seeking D1 use relief to allow for a convenience sales facility with fuel sales component. Again, that's the D1 relief that's before the board. We are right at the junction of the M2 district and also at the junction with Piscataway Township proper. Last page shows the pre-existing condition of the property with the older hotel and the building, and this is taken in August of last year. So this is what the property looked like about a year ago. You get a sense of the scale of the building, you get a sense of the scale of the sign that's there, and again, the applicant is proposing roadside signs that are going to be actually lower than that which was presently existing. With that backdrop, again, we're looking at repurposing the site, we're looking at advancing the purposes of zoning and promoting the public welfare, all going towards the statutory test that's required for D1 use relief. We've run this application through the 4 parts of the use variance test. That's the Medici test. We find that all 4 parts pass. Number 1, the site suitability standard looks at the site context and the site condition. Just going back again to the aerial photograph, we see that the site is particularly suited for the land use by virtue of its location along a transportation node, by virtue of the condition of the property, which is generally cleared and flat, ideally suited to accommodate the land use that's before you, excellent accessibility, excellent connectivity with the regional road work, again, which is exactly where this land use wants to be. Second part of the test moves us from the land itself, looks at the land use law and the purposes of zoning that are advanced, and we see a multiplicity of purposes being advanced here, including Purpose A, the promotion of the general welfare with a use that will serve the motoring public that is passing by at a particularly well-suited location. Also, the advancement of Purpose I, the promotion of a desirable visual environment. This is going to be a nice completion of the puzzle that was started with the approval a few years ago. It is certainly going to be complementary to the hotel use that is now starting to rise up from the ground as we pass by the site, and also the assisted living facility as well, where we'll have workers who will have easy access to a land use that caters to convenience. That's the essence of the land use. That's one of the reasons why this particular application is actually looking for extra parking. It is supposed to be a land use that is easy to get to, easy to navigate, comfortable and convenient. That's why people come to this particular land use. And this particular end user is a premium or the premium example of what this land use is as it manifests in terms of the contemporary convenience with fuel sales land use. Additionally, we see the advancement of Purpose M, which is the promotion of an efficient use of land, taking a site that was previously developed, dropping in a land use that nicely fits within the context of the space that's available, and efficiently repurposing previously disturbed land. Finally, the advancement of Purpose G, the provision for a variety of uses in appropriate locations. For all of the site suitability reasons that I've given, this site is certainly appropriate for the land use that's before you. Third part of the test takes us from the positive aspects, looks at the potentially adverse effects. I think that's been well vetted by the witnesses that have gone before me, that this land use at this location can operate safely and efficiently without creating any substantially adverse impacts on the public itself, going into the site, going out of the site, going through the site. Certainly no substantial detriment on the surrounding properties as well. Will not impede the use, the privacy, or the enjoyment of those surrounding properties, and is actually complementary to the commercial aspect of the land uses that are around the site. Finally, we look at the impact on the zone plan and the ordinance, and we know that any deviation, any use variance is a deviation from the zone plan. We look at the magnitude of the deviation, and to the extent here that the essence of that 2016 reexamination report echoes some previously articulated goals of the master plan going back to 2006, again, to bolster and to strengthen these sites that are proximate to Route 287. It's exactly what the application is doing here, is adding to the viability and the vitality of the site itself. For all of those reasons, the 4 parts of the statutory test of the primary relief that's before the board for use relief is justifiable. The subsidiary relief are listed very well in your planner, Mr. Healy's report on page 3. They've been touched upon very nicely in terms of the technical aspects by the applicant's engineer. The first relates to the impervious coverage, and again, I'm referring, if the board wants to follow along, as a scorecard here with the list that's been put forth in Mr. Healy's report on page 3. The impervious coverage is at 56.9% for the Quick Check site, whereas 55% is the maximum allowed. Again, this is going to be a substantial greening of the site over that which previously existed, as you can see if you look at a comparison of what was and what is under the proposed development plan, and I'll just flip back to that. So we think the planning goal to provide for a nice green edge around the property, an adequate breakup of the overall landscaping is certainly a betterment over the pre-existing condition. This is going to be a nice blend with the uses that have already been approved on the site. And again, sort of going back to the aspect that this is going to complete the puzzle that has been previously considered here. The overage of 1.9% is de minimis and is easily reconcilable by stormwater management improvements, which will mitigate any additional runoff that's created. And in that regard, we see that relief being justifiable under the flexible sea balancing test, whereby the benefits of the application as a whole substantially outweigh the detriments. Likewise, the rear yard setback encroachment, which relates to 100 feet being required, 61.5 feet being the proposal here, that is mitigated by the vertical, as you heard through Mitch's testimony, the vertical separation from the road, minimizing the impact of that proximity, again, to the property line. The rear yard for the accessory building only pertains to the maintenance shed, whereby 5.2 feet are being proposed, 50 feet is what's allowed, and again, that only relates to the maintenance shed, which is interior to the property itself.
So in other words, if the maintenance, hello, over this way.
Thank you.
So if the maintenance shed wasn't there, then they would be in compliance?
That is correct. It is
Okay.
an important component of the operation. Again, it adds to the efficiency of it.
Well, yeah, but just to be clear, I mean, the maintenance shed itself requires, and then the building, even though it's internal lot lines, the building itself requires side yard and rear yard variance.
Right, but the way that I understood what the witness just said was that the only reason that they need the rear yard variance for the rear yard setback was because the maintenance shed and the actual building, if it wasn't there, that they wouldn't be required. That variance wouldn't be required.
There are two
There are two rear yard variances.
rear yard variances. The accessory building one is 5.2 feet.
Oh, okay, all right.
That's what I'm saying, the building itself requires a variance as well.
Okay, all right.
And the building setback, 61.5, is what's noted in Mr. Healy's report. Again, that's internal to the development as a whole. That's not on the perimeter of the property where it would encroach into the light air or open space of, I'll say, an outside use. This is all integral to this planned cohesive development.
Right.
Yes, you can see that again, the impacted party, if you will, in terms of the encroachment into the light air and open space is a surface parking lot. Lastly, the relief related to the parking in the front yard, Mr. Healy touched upon this before as well, the need from I'll say in terms of providing adequate parking for the real-world demand of this particular land use are those 5 spaces that do encroach into the front yard setback.
On what do you base that real need requirement, that real-world requirement? There was really no testimony to the effect that there was any real requirement for these spaces because the number of spaces that are allowed actually exceed what's required.
It's true.
What's the point? Especially because isn't there a question right now about they want to have more buffering between that area and the canal, and to allow those 5 spaces is the only place where you have that objection. So it seems that to allow that variance isn't going to be promoting any kind of accommodation to the master plan or the town plan. Wouldn't you agree?
Well, it's a matter of striking a balance, and this particular end user, Quick Check now, I think is up to something like 40 sites here in the area actually operating, whereby we have I'll say the newer model of convenience with the fuel. And this is the number that they see in terms of the real world demand to service the customers that frequent their sites. So it's striking a balance. Again, the applicant is seeking relief for 5 additional spaces, again, in the interest of providing a nice green edge, which is really the intent of the goal, and breaking up the mass of the parking lot with the remainder landscaping that's being provided. So it's a balancing, and the applicant is seeking that relief, again, as necessary to effectuate this overall beneficial use, and it sort of ties to the use proofs that I've already put forth. And I believe the board can move on all 4 of those dimensional or bulk variances under the C2 balancing test. Again, looking at the benefits of the application as a whole, advancing or substantially advancing any detriments. Now, I don't know if the board needs me to go through each one of the sign variances individually. My intent was going to be to bundle them, because I think Mitch actually went through in very good detail, and Oliver as well, in terms of the building sign package and the overall look of the building. The key point is clear and safe identification of the site promotes public safety. That's what this applicant is doing with this sign package that's provided here. The overall sign package, we believe, is tasteful. It effectuates the safety aspect that the signs themselves are intended to promote. It's effectuating a good balance. These signs are not going to be overbearing in the context of the landscape. They are mitigated by the surrounding landscape, and the fact that this particular site is on the inside of an S-curve. If we go back to my planning exhibits, again, when you come off that ramp, the site itself is on the inside, not the outside of a turn. The added height to the signs, I believe, promotes clearer and safer visibility. And again, trying to pick up the visibility of the sign as we're coming off of the highway ramp. I actually, let's see if I can pick that up here, did take a photograph last time I was coming to the site. This is an actual, and this, for the record, I think we're up to A10, A9. So A9 is a photograph of the property as you are coming in off of the ramp off of 287, and you get a sense of how you can't even see the entrance or any signage on the property right now as you're coming into this inside curve, and with the ground starting to rise up as well. I snapped another shot. We'll call that A10. I've now moved closer, and there is an actual construction temporary sign. Do we have a height on it? Okay. This shows a sign that is approximately 12 feet high. So you get a sense, again, assuming that there's going to be landscaping and whatnot in the front, we barely capture the copy on the sign from this particular vantage point.
Is that the same location approximately as the proposed signs?
This is, I would say, more recessed than the proposed signs. When I say recessed, I mean closer to the driveway than the proposed signs. Mitch is nodding his head, yes.
That means the proposed signs will be...
Would be closer to me as I'm, or the driver of the vehicle. Yeah, let's say...
So the signs would be in front of that tree, not in back of it?
I don't think they would be in front of the tree. From this vantage point, they would be somewhere located between the tree and between the yellow sign.
What was that?
They-
Say that again?
The proposed signs would be located somewhere between the tree.
Oh, okay, right, yeah, that's, because you made it, when you spoke the first time, you made it sound just the opposite, like that the signs would actually be further forward, because there was some discussion about having to get rid of the tree.
Forward, he meant closer to the roadway, travel portion of the roadway.
To the driveway? Closer to the driveway?
Roadway.
What roadway?
Here's the last photo. We'll mark this A11. I do actually have one of the driveway too. I haven't sent that over to myself yet. But again, here you are just before the driveway. I would say at this vantage point, you probably have the proposed sign on your shoulder. You're probably just passing it. Again, that yellow sign is approximately 12 feet high. So again, this, in my view, is helpful evidence and justification for the added height that the applicant is seeking. Bearing in mind, we are trying to plant a nice green edge along the perimeter of the property, so there will be structures there, there will be massing, and lifting that sign will help promote its visibility. So again, the justification for the sign package as a whole, we can go through them individually if the board wants, but the roadside signs are going to be lower than that which is there. We think the applicant has found a sweet spot in terms of balancing a sign that's not too high and a sign that's not too low in the interest of promoting safe visibility. The building signs, as we saw in the exhibit, blend nicely with the overall architectural package. They are not overbearing. Certainly, I think it's safe to say from the visuals that have been provided, this is not going to be overbearing. It's a very simple, very tasteful architectural package, and the signs complement it very well. That said, the applicant does need relief for the quantity of signs and the area of the signs and the like, but we think, again, it provides for effective branding without being over-branding. And then finally, the applicant is seeking relief to have the logos, the quick check text on the directional signs as well, which we think helps promote navigation. It becomes a wayfinding sign, particularly when you have a multiplicity of uses on the property.
And those signs, those logo signs are all internal to the site, and none of them are visible from any of the roadways. Is that correct?
That is correct. So with that said, I think this is a good missing link on what has already been an approved site. I think the relatively minor relief that the applicant is seeking here from a bulk standpoint is certainly appropriate, certainly hits the statutory tests. And with that said, I think I can rest at least on direct unless there's any redirect with question.
I have no further questions. I'll turn it over to the board.
Anything from the board?
One question on the directional signs. So you'd indicated that it's for directional purpose, navigation purposes for customers. If other businesses aren't allowed to have logos on their signs, Taco Bell can't have it on their, drive-through sign, McDonald's can't have it, why should Quick Check?
Well, I think it has bearing on the fact that we have a site with multiple uses on it. And the Quick Check site is the first one that will hit, and I think that will help identify that that's what that particular use, as opposed to just saying, I'll get there, as opposed to saying just enter and exit. We think that because of everything else that's going on there, to identify Quick Check not only serves a directional purpose, it is an informational purpose as well. It's not advertising per se.
Mark, I need to understand your question better. Were you speaking about the signs that are going to be appearing as the person leaves the premises, and the signs explain how to get to 287? Or were you speaking about the building and the gas area as in particular?
No, so they have a total of 4 signs, I believe. Is it 4? 4 signs.
That's correct.
And so each of their entrances, they have that entrance road on the bottom, right? And they have the an entrance to the right of the Quick Check and to the left. And they have an enter and exit on each side. And each of those, and those are directional signs. They're small. I think they're 3 square feet in size. And on each of those 3, on the enter and the exit, on all 4, they have their logo on there. Or our ordinance doesn't permit that because I think the intent of that ordinance is that, sites can use that for just an additional opportunity to just add more signage. If, just say McDonald's wants to put a big M, but it's a directional sign because it has an arrow. I mean, that's the intent, is just to try to reduce the amount of sign clutter. If a business needs to have directional signage to say loading this way, drive through this way, that's fine. Our ordinance permits that, but you can't just slap your logo on it. That's the intent of the ordinance. And
Okay, so it's those signs that your question was directed to, not the signs on the building.
Yeah, so then my question was, if
All right.
the other similar uses are not required or not permitted to do that, why should this application?
And again, just to underscore, the short response there is anytime the board grants a variance, we have to look at a particular piece of property. Otherwise, it applies to the whole zone. And I think your planner raises a good question. Why can't Taco Bell and the other users do it? Bear in mind, importantly here, one of the key intents is to try to avoid some of this crossover of circulation. We don't necessarily want the Bristol folks coming onto the Quick Check site. Not that we don't want to foreclose that altogether, but what I'm saying is we want to try to provide that navigation aid that keeps the Bristol folks going in through that driveway on the side portion, I'll call it, and not directing them accidentally onto the Quick Check site. So it's just a facilitator, it's just an aid. And I think that's how the board can create a distinctive element to this variance as opposed to others.
Would you have the same interpretation if the signs just said fuel food?
No, that's an interesting question, but it basically says, I think it says no corporate logos. So if the direction was purpose-oriented, I think it would comply.
So if you put the signs up in green and said fuel food and no logo, then you don't need the variance.
So the point is,
you're establishing the same thing.
I think the point is this provides an added element than just the basic word food or fuel. It's a visual cue to have the logo there.
People would know they're not going to the nursing home for food and fuel. So are we agreeing on something, or are we still looking for the signs and a piece of advertising? If they're green, that fits in with the Quick Check color. Food and fuel, you're the only people offering it.
It is not atypical in a plan development to have identifiers associated with the sign package that would distinguish the various uses. So as I stand here or sit here now before you, the intent is to keep those logos on there. We think it's beneficial to the application.
I think you might be getting some advice from above there for a second.
Oh, there he is. I should have looked back. May I defer?
It's a good point. And John brings up a good point in the sense that because you have multiple uses on the property, it's helpful to see then where you're trying to direct the traffic. Single-use property, when you have an enter and an exit, everyone knows. But when you have multiple uses, it could become confusing. But to work with the board, we'd be happy to comply and say, okay, we'll take the Q off the sign, and if you'll allow us to say fuel or food or whatever, or just directional, we would accept that.
Sounds good. Let's go on.
Thank you.
I think we're done. I don't know if Mr. Healy has any other questions.
I just had I keep looking down to see, the question came up of what is the address of the site? Is it on Eastern Avenue or is it on 287?
The mailing address as given by the 911 coordinator when we obtained the subdivision. There are 3 different addresses. They all are Easton Avenue addresses. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but all of the sites have been assigned a street address by the township coordinator, and they all say, I think it's 1860, 1870, I don't remember the exact numbers, Easton Avenue.
That's the address given.
Yeah, the hotel.
Those 3.
The hotel has an address. The assisted living is 1870 Easton Avenue. The hotel is 1860 Easton Avenue, and the quick check is 1850 Easton Avenue. And those numbers have already been assigned.
Anything else? Okay, you want to let me open up? We're open to the public. I think there is no public other than witnesses for the applicant. So we'll close and then Ron.
Okay. We've spent a lot of time this evening going over this. I don't want to spend a lot of time summarizing it, but I do think some of the things that Mr. McDonough said are very relevant. And I hearken back to this process started over a couple years. This board has been through this site with the hotel, with the subdivisions. What we have here is we've taken over the course of the last couple of years probably one of the least desirable sites in Franklin Township, and I think several times when I was here, you sort of chastised me and say, when's your client going to do something with that ugly structure, the old hotel? And, you know, we've managed to do it. It wasn't easy in that we had to spend a lot of money to acquire a new roadway from First Industrial to get the new access point, which I think a lot of people have overlooked as being a very salient point as far as this application, and taking traffic away from the medical office building, taking an intersection away from the intersection of Easton Avenue and World's Fair Drive and moving it further in 600 feet from the highway, which is a big plus from this site. The gas station, as Mr. McDonough says, is an appropriate location. While there is going to be an increase of traffic based on Ms. Dolan's testimony, it is not a significant increase. I think the use is appropriate. We spent a lot of time talking about signage. We've danced the sign dance for a while with various agencies. And as Mr. Ordman in his testimony said, it wasn't that we just took the signs, came up with a number, and plopped them in certain places. He was very careful in trying to find the exact location and the exact heights of those signs so that they are A, aesthetically pleasing, and B, functionally effective. And as Ms. Dolan says, you know, the signage has to be placed in a location where it can be seen and to be effective for people coming and entering and leaving the site. And when he generated, we have a lot of pass-by traffic. If people are coming off the interstate, there are a fair percentage of people that aren't coming to Franklin Township. They're driving the interstate and they see a sign for gas because there will be signs on the interstate, and they're going to have to know where to get to that gas station. And I think we've taken great pains, both in talking to the Canal Commission, our Historic Commission, and I think even Mr. Healy was part of the suggestion that we create the two signs. Again, we can argue all day as to whether they are the most appropriate locations, but I think it's not a situation where we just willy-nilly place the signs there. I think they're there because they belong there. I think the sign on World's Fair Drive is also an appropriate and attractive sign. Unfortunately, we didn't give you the colored version of it this evening, but I think that is also appropriate. For all of those reasons, I think, as Mr. McDonough says, this is the last piece of a puzzle that took a site that was not something that made people in Franklin Township proud, and I think when all of the three buildings are built, it will be a site that will be effective, it will be useful, it is appropriate, and I think it will be a plus to the corporate business community, to the residents, and to also motorists who are traveling along 287. I think for those reasons, the D1 variance can be granted, and I think, as Mr. McDonough said, the bulk variances that we are seeking can also be granted. I thank the board for their time, for their input. I also thank the township staff because they've spent a lot of time with us on these plans. Mitch and I have sat down with them on numerous occasions, and I think what we've come up with is a plan that is going to be, when it's all finished, a massive improvement to that area. I thank you for your time.
Okay, one thing it's been emphasized, you know, that you have the pass-by traffic, and it's hard to compete with 2,000 cars an hour. But I tend to agree with you for once that the other entrance is going to be more important than you're making it sound at this point, because all of the people visiting the nursing home are not going to be coming off 287. And that will be one of the most convenient ways to get into that facility. The second thing you're forgetting is in that you're opening up all of World's Fair Drive, all of the commercial areas in that general neighborhood. You're opening up access to that property, to those facilities, which doesn't have it now without going on Easton Avenue through, as our traffic expert says, the spaghetti interchange. And why that's important is there's no place to buy gas that's convenient. If you can point out the Exxon on Easton Avenue, but that might be the worst location in the township to get in and out of and survive it without getting killed. So I think it's a win-win situation. You know, obviously I'm going to vote for it with all the conditions if we can come up with a few stronger ones. But I think that other access is going to become much more important than it's been made out to be. It's not going to support the facility because it doesn't have the 2,000 cars, but it's going to have a lot. Any comments?
I have some comments. I think that the D1 variance can be granted, but I'm having difficulty with a couple of the bulk variances. I thought that the planner's response to, and also his comments regarding the 5 spaces that create the requirement for the parking variance, I don't think that that's sufficiently valuable to Quick Check for that to be something that we include in the resolution. I think that if I was to give the resolution, I would not include that particular variance that they're asking for. And he talked about striking a balance, and without really having any real reason other than, well, we want these things, and we think that we're going to need them. But I don't think that that's enough. I'm also not particularly fond of the reasons for the different height of the excessive height of the 2 signs along the street. I think that we can solve the third thing is that I think we solve the lighting issues under the canopy. I would agree with the comments made, I believe, by the architect, who said the reason that they need the light bright under the canopy is because people are doing business there. I would agree with that, but even he admitted that the 35 candle power rating of what was on our plan exceeded the provisions in the Illuminating Engineering Society of North America, which only held a 30 candle power.
Wait a minute. In that regard, that was for an office use.
Right, I was about to say that. And that was for an inside use, not an outside use. So I don't know whether the outside use would be more, but it would seem to me that it should be no more than 30. And it should be, they should be required to come up with some sort of industry standard from some organization, either the Illuminating Engineering Society of North America or the Illumination Engineers of
I think we were both referring to
America.
the same, we were both referring to the same organization.
Yeah, so those are my problems with it. It's just that I don't know how to make a resolution where I've got a problem with 3 of the things unless I make it that way, and then we have successive votes on the other parts of it. How do we deal with that?
Well, wasn't there an agreement reached on the lighting to abide by?
Yeah, I think we can do the lighting.
So, we could
It's
put that in.
Right, we can put that in. The problem is what do we do with the height of the signs coming down the road, and what do we do about those 5 spaces? I mean,
Well, we have in the past occasionally just eliminated them. Situations like that.
Yeah.
And I'm sort of, I would say that personally I'm on the same page as you are with that. If the site was just meeting minimum parking standards, it'd be one thing. If it had a clientele that came and stayed, they had occupied the spaces for long periods of time, I would look at it differently.
Yeah.
But in this case, it's usually often an in and out. And I don't see that those 5 spaces are going to make or break this application, but it can reduce the impervious coverage and solve another problem with the visibility.
Right.
The lights personally, the signs, I don't know.
I'm really not offended by the height.
I know that I agree there too. I personally, I like to, if I come off of that exit, I would like, you have people that have to make a quick decision on changing lanes. I would like it to be as potentially visible as possible. And if it were in another location, I might think differently, but there's nothing around here. There's no homes, there's no residences, there's nothing that you're impacting. I see that being more positive. I understand you're seeing it more negative. I don't know what to do then.
Well, I didn't feel that strongly about that provision. I was mostly, those 5 spaces were mostly an issue to me. So I don't know who wants to do the resolution if.
If anyone else wants to give some input on those issues, feel free to jump in.
Want me to list through what some of the conditions are, and maybe that can help form somebody to make a motion? All right, so condition was that the signs would have to remain consistent over time in their appearance. I'll add the elimination of the 5 spaces. The canopy would not be illuminated with the exception of the sign that's on it. No high-flow diesel. The enclosure would match the building. The applicant would work with staff to provide additional landscaping along the frontage consistent with the input from the Historic Commission, staff, and DNR Canal, including more plantings and cascading plantings over the wall. They're going to review the lighting under the canopy and demonstrate the applicable requirements per the Illumination Engineer Society. They did indicate that they were going to lower it. The board discussed maybe having 30 as a benchmark, but whatever the industry standards are.
Industry standard, I think, is what we want.
Okay.
Right.
Was a waiver for,
Yep, that's it. Yep, I think that That concludes my notes, yes, the
And
waiver
and the-
from
and the
26
logo-
to
The
25.
logo will be eliminated from the directional signs.
Right.
And do you also want the color coordination with the hotel use and the quick check use? Didn't they give us an indication?
I don't know if they mentioned color, but he said, you mean the color of the
The
bricks?
color of the base of the
Yeah.
hotel, yeah. But that was another indication.
Well, with all of those conditions, I move it.
I had one other question. On the DNR canal, you've been meeting with them? And I read this, the staff report is issued as a guide to applicants, not an approval. Construction shall begin, no construction shall begin until a certificate of approval is issued. Has that been issued, or?
No, the Canal Commission cannot issue a certificate of approval until this board has acted, and we provide them with a resolution of approval, and we also provide them with an approval by Somerset County, which we do in fact already have. So after we get the resolution from Mr. Vignolo that you guys vote on, I then send that to the Canal Commission. We do have some tweaking to do with them, and then they will approve that.
Nonetheless, whatever the DNR commission requires that they'll have to do before they build. That's a standard condition of any approval.
They don't have a whole 3 months' worth of work to do. I mean, there's a lot of things that they require.
They will have to comply with all of them, and they won't be able to build until they show us proof of the
We need a
DNR
second
Canal
for
Commission.
the motion.
Second.
Just one clarification, because you're moving the application with these conditions. You've indicated you're removing the 5 spaces, but we're also then eliminating the front yard setback variance for those spaces, correct? Okay, just so when you're making a motion, you're making a motion to approve the application with the variance relief as set forth in Mr.
And possibly the impervious coverage, if it's recalculated. If not, then we're granting the variance.
Well,
I
the
mean,
question then
still-
becomes, you're eliminating spaces there, but,
Artman says it's still over.
I mean, you're not redesigning the site plan at that point to readjust coverage or not coverage. They're gonna not have spaces there, but there's no indication. I'm sure they'll work with the staff to add green space if they're not allowed to have spaces there, but there's really no indication over what's gonna happen in that space as of yet.
I think Mr. Healy was looking for landscaping in
Right.
that location.
Yes.
Yeah, well, the ordinance requires it to be open, and both DNR and Historic had recommended more screening, so it's not Mark Healy, it's other.
Right, but at this point, you have a site plan in front of you. You've indicated you're eliminating the spaces from there. We have no idea what's gonna happen with that space, but there's not gonna be any there's not gonna be any parking there because the front yard setback for the parking has been eliminated, and the applicant's gonna work with the professional staff to most likely try to add more landscaping in that location.
Correct.
Okay.
With those conditions, then, is there any further discussion?
You gotta.
All right, I guess poll the board.
So we're going with Laura first and Shepherd second, right? Okay. Laura?
Yes?
Bruce McCracken?
Yes.
Alan Rich?
Yes.
Robert Shepherd?
Yes.
Gary Rosenthal?
Yes.
Cheryl Bethia?
Yes.
And Chairman Thomas?
Yes. Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
Moved.